Chapter 136, Chapter 136, The Feeling of Being Wealthy. Chapter 136, The Feeling of Being Wealthy. Jiang Hao set up his stall. Shixin wasn't rushing to leave. He stayed and set up his stall as well. Jiang Hao's decision to stay and sell some more items surprised him. At noon, Jiang Hao saw that he didn't have much stuff to sell. He sighed. He had expected to make at least 2,000 spirit stones. In the end, he only earned about 1,000. Now, he had 12,700 spirit stones. Jiang Hao shook his head. There was no way he could earn more in this market. Your items are very good, but not everyone can afford them, said Shixin. Jiang Hao nodded. He had some healing talismans and some pain-relieving talismans. He even managed to sell a few 100,000 swords. Talismans. No one could afford the lifeblood refinement pills. People in the late or peak foundation establishment realm were rare here. He had only seen one person in the late stage of the foundation establishment realm, and that was Shixin. After packing up, Jiang Hao prepared to leave. If you want to sell everything, you can go to the cloud pavilion inside. The prices there are still reasonable, said Shixin. Or, you can continue here. I'm sure this will all be sold by tonight. Are there more people at night? Jiang Hao asked. There are indeed more people at night, but it's also more chaotic. It's easy for things to be disrupted by some ignorant young people. Shixin sighed. Jiang Hao hesitated. Zuolan started selling things in the afternoon, right? Yes, but he might not be selling at night. Can we set up a stall near his place? I can't, but maybe you can. I'll wait for you here anyway. If you have something to do, you don't have to wait for me. All right. Shixin nodded. Jiang Hao left his stall and made his way to the cloud pavilion. It was a loft located in the center of the street. He had seen it before, so he didn't hesitate to enter. People moved about in pairs inside. They had their own little groups. The interior of the pavilion was exquisite but not as magnificent as the Snow Lotus Pavilion in the Heaven Note sect. He approached the counter. Do you buy items for recycling? The woman sitting at the counter smiled. Yes, we do. But we don't accept ordinary things. May I ask what kind of items you want to sell, fellow disciple? Jiang Hao saw that the woman was confident and efficient. It seemed that working here was quite a remarkable thing to do. He realized that most people here were only in their lifeblood refinement realm, so it made sense why working here would be seen as prestigious. He took out a spirit sword and a bottle of foundation establishment realm pills. I have these. He had no intention of selling the talismans here. Those could be sold in the market because people always needed talismans. As for the spirit swords, he had too many of them and wanted to sell a few. Foundation establishment pills? The woman at the counter seemed somewhat surprised. These pills weren't particularly expensive, but the fact that Jiang Hao had them indicated that he might be a cultivator in the foundation establishment realm. The woman got up. Please follow me, senior. Jiang Hao nodded and followed her. Soon, he entered a room where a beautiful woman was seated in the center. The woman from the counter explained the situation briefly and left. So, you want to sell spirit swords and foundation establishment pills? Chen Cece looked at the sword and the bottle of pills. These pills are of average quality. We usually purchase them for 30 spirit stones per bottle. 30 spirit stones seemed a bit low. Foundation establishment pills were suitable for those in the early stage of the foundation establishment realm. In the Heavenly Note sect's marketplace, it was usually sold for 50 spirit stones per bottle. That's acceptable. Jiang Hao nodded. He then took out other pills and handed them to her. Have a look at these two. He brought out some pills used in the early stage of the Golden Core realm. He wanted to sell everything he could. The person in front of him was at the mid-stage of the foundation establishment realm. She was also very adept at examining things. Golden Core realm pills? Where did you get these? Chen Cece seemed a bit uneasy. That doesn't matter. Do you refuse to buy them? Jiang Hao asked. The person fell silent for a moment and then began to evaluate the items. After evaluating everything, she finally quoted a price of 980 spirit stones. Jiang Hao let out a sigh. He had gotten those pills from Po Lang. It was surprising that everything didn't even fetch him 1,000 spirit stones. He brought out a spirit sword. How much for this? That spirit sword is well crafted. We can purchase it for 5 spirit stones from you, Chen Cece said. Jiang Hao fell silent. 6. All right, said Chen Cece. Jiang Hao brought out 100 similar spirit swords. Here are 100 of them. Chen Cece was momentarily stunned. She realized that the person in front of her wasn't ordinary. Can you accept them all? Jiang Hao asked. Yes. Chen Cece nodded. In the end, they settled on 1,600 spirit stones. Combined with the 12,700 spirit stones Jiang Hao had on him, now he had a total of 14,300 spirit stones. Jiang Hao was in disbelief. After buying the red azure tea and paying the fine of the law enforcement hall, he would still have 1,000 left. Jiang Hao felt happy. The future looked promising. He hadn't even met Swalan yet. He would have information on the other stone tablet. Perhaps he could earn more along the way. After the transaction, Chen Cece was much more polite toward Jiang Hao. On the surface, both were at the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. She acted a bit superior to Jiang Hao because she ran this place. However, Jiang Hao didn't mind. He had long since abandoned comparing himself to others. Being in the Heavenly Note sect had taught him to be cautious if he intended to survive. There was no room to feel such useless envy and jealousy. Even when he reached the peak of the Golden Core realm and surpassed Mu Qi, he remained calm and collected. Do you have any tea leaves for sale here? He asked. What kind of tea leaves would you like? Chen Cece asked. We have red sleeve fragrance tea which is priced at 10 spirit stones, the Snow Queen spring tea which costs 15 spirit stones, and Azure Sky Cloud tea which is 13 spirit stones. Jiang Hao looked surprised. The teas here were so cheap. He asked to see them. After examining the quality, he realized they were all rubbish. He wouldn't dare to brew such low-quality tea for that Demoness. Do you have the more expensive version of Snow Queen Spring? Jiang Hao asked. More expensive version? Chen Cece was a bit puzzled. Jiang Hao took out the remaining Snow Queen Spring from his pocket. This version of the tea. Do you have it? Chen Cece looked astonished. Yes. It's upstairs. I'll have someone bring it down. She wondered where this customer had come from. He had such refined tastes. Jiang Hao was handed the good quality tea after a while. That is 55 spirit stones for 250 GM, said Chen Cece. Even for her, this was a luxury item. Paying 55 spirit stones for 250 GM of tea was something she couldn't imagine doing. She only served that kind of tea when meeting important and powerful people. Chapter 137, Chapter 137, Ruthless. Chapter 137, Ruthless. It was 5 spirit stones more expensive. However, there was nothing he could do. If he didn't buy the remaining tea leaves, who knew how long he would remain alive? Give me 7 kilograms, Jiang Hao said. Chen Cece was stunned. She had never seen someone buy expensive tea in bulk like this. Chen Cece regretfully told him that there was only 5 kilograms of the tea in stock right now. In the end, Jiang Hao bought 5 kilograms of Snow Queen spring tea for a total of 1,100 spirit stones. Now he only had around 13,200 spirit stones. Do you have red azure tea in stock? He was a little curious. He had never bought the red azure tea anywhere else except the Heavenly Note sect. He didn't know how much it cost outside his sect. Our red azure tea? Chen Cece stammered. That was the most expensive tea. Only big shots drank it because it was so difficult to produce. Do you have it? Asked Jiang Hao. Chen Cece nodded. How much would that be? It's about 10,000 spirit stones. Do you want me to inform the staff to bring it down? Jiang Hao nodded. Yes, please. If it was high-quality red azure tea, the price was reasonable. Jiang Hao also looked at some spirit herbs for sale. In the end, he bought 2 clear snow seeds. It was the main ingredient for a spirit concentration pill. The heavenly fragrance Dao flower had a pleasant fragrance and gave off tranquil spirit energy. The clear snow seed was similar in nature. One seed cost 100 spirit stones. This spirit herb was decent. He wondered if it would drop a blue bubble when it finally bloomed. He also bought 14 bottles of spirit liquid. One bottle cost him about 30 spirit stones. That was 420 spirit stones spent. Soon, an old man arrived in the room. He was in the peak stage of the foundation establishment realm. "Are you the one who wants the red azure tea?" he asked. He didn't think a young man in the middle stage of foundation establishment realm could afford such an expensive tea. "Can I inspect the goods first?" Jiang Hao asked. The old man opened the box to show him. Jiang Hao immediately smelled the aroma of the tea. The tea leaves were green with a hint of red at the edge. It was a good quality tea. "What about the price?" asked Jiang Hao. "If you really want it, we'll give it to you for 9,300 spirit stones." The old man didn't want to set too high a price. The tea had been sitting in storage for a long time. He was in a hurry to sell it. Jiang Hao nodded and handed him the spirit stones. "Thank you. I want to take the tea with me now if that's not a problem." He had earned a few hundred spirit stones today, but he had also spent a lot of it. Now he only had 3,300 spirit stones left. Jiang Hao walked out of the cloud pavilion and ignored their surprised faces. He saw another pavilion up ahead. There were some stalls there. According to what Shashin said, that should be the place where Zuolan sold disciples. He walked to the place and found a spacious area with many rooms. "Fellow disciple, please come in," said a young man and ushered Jiang Hao inside. "Are you Zuolan?" Jiang Hao asked. "If you think so, then I must be." The young man smiled. "If you think I'm not, maybe I might not be him, after all." Jiang Hao observed him for a while. He was in the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm, but his spiritual energy was a little strange. Jiang Hao thought that this must be the puppet. He followed the man to a small room. The room was small. It had some tables and chairs inside. "This is the name list." The man, who called himself Zuolan, handed the name list to Jiang Hao. "You are a bit late, fellow disciple. There are only 2 left." Jiang Hao looked at the list. There were more than 20 names on it. The name, gender, and age were all recorded. "Wasn't the shop set up only in the afternoon?" asked Jiang Hao. There were 10 girls and 13 boys on the list. The oldest one was 14 years old, and the youngest was 7. Jiang Hao had never seen such a thing at the Heavenly Note sect. The Heavenly Note sect would not stoop so low to buy and sell children. "Of course. We started selling early because the customers were eager." "Which one do you want, fellow disciple?" "Chun Yu, female, 10 years old, low talent." Jiang Hao looked at the name list. Bruiser, male, 11 years old, average talent. "Where did you find them?" "They were captured from the surrounding villages. I brought them here because this could change their fate and their lives. I am their benefactor if you look at it that way. They don't appreciate it, though. Chun Yu's parents attacked me with a hoe. They're ignorant." Zuolan shook his head and laughed. "And then?" Jiang Hao asked with interest. "When you look at it this way, I'm actually trying to help them. The family now had fewer mouths to feed." "You've really helped them a lot," said Jiang Hao reluctantly. "Can you bring them both here? I want to inspect them." "Fellow disciple, you're wise." "They call me ruthless," said Zuolan. "I mean, no person is good in the cultivation world. Those who are strong became powerful by trampling on others. Why pretend to be moral when no one is actually good?" Zuolan smiled and walked out of the room. Liang Hao sat there orative and waited. After a while, the door was pushed open. Zuolan led 2 children inside. The girl had been crying. Her eyes were red, and they were full of hate and anger. Her clothes were torn and covered in what looked like dried blood. There was a wide iron ring around her neck. The boy beside her looked a bit better. He looked determined as though he understood why this must be done. He was barefooted. "How much?" Jiang Hao asked. 150 for the female and 200 for the male. Zhuolan smiled. We've also added some restrictions to control them. No need for that. Jiang Hao shook his head. Boom. There was a loud rumble outside. Jiang Hao turned to look out the window and saw a man in the late stage of the Golden Core realm soaring into the sky. He was surprisingly fast. 3 people immediately chased after him. They were all in the Golden Core realm. Jiang Hao recognized them at a glance. It's them. He noticed that the one who was fleeing was a clone. There will always be people causing trouble around here. Zhuolan shook his head and sighed. Then, he turned to look at Jiang Hao. Are you here to cause trouble too, fellow disciple? Jiang Hao looked at him calmly and unsheathed his half-moon blade. A slash of moonlight appeared, and everything fell silent. One strike from the blade had severed Zhuolan's head. Jiang Hao slowly sheathed his saber. I guess so. Chapter 138. Chapter 138. Friend, it seems you lack manners. Chapter 138. Friend, it seems you lack manners. The person who claimed to be Zhuolan was dead. He died under Jiang Hao's blade. Perhaps he never thought that Jiang Hao would make a move. Jiang Hao turned to the 2 children. They looked at him in fear. They were terrified of Jiang Hao. I give you 2 choices. First, you can go back to where you came from and live ordinary lives. Or accept these spirit swords and stab the man on the ground. I will help you get into a sect as disciples. However, the second option is dangerous. You'll have the fear of death as long as you live. The only way to stay alive would be to cultivate and get stronger. He did not want to explain too much. He couldn't take them back to the Heavenly Note sect. However, he might be able to find a master who could accept them. Bruiser was the first to accept the sword. He gritted his teeth and took a step forward. Chun Yu followed suit and accepted a sword too. Her hand trembled as she held it, but she moved slowly to stand by the corpse on the ground. They hesitated a while and then stabbed the dead man. At first, they were a little afraid. After a while, they vented their fear and anger on the corpse. By the time they were finished, the corpse was shredded to bits. Jiang Hao led them out. Fortunately, they didn't encounter other clones of Zhuolan. Jiang Hao went to look for Shishi. He wanted to ask him if he wanted disciples. Bruiser and Chun Yu gripped their spirit swords tightly and followed behind Jiang Hao. Bruiser was silent and Chun Yu cried quietly. She was physically well. The 2 children followed Jiang Hao, not daring to slow down. They knew that if they lost him now, their fate would turn tragic. On the street, Shishin stayed at his stall. He saw powerful Golden Core realm cultivators chasing another person in the same realm. He was surprised to see so many Golden Core realm cultivators in the marketplace. Shishin had felt the powerful presence of Golden Core realm cultivators and looked Yuan to see them chasing each other. They were even stronger than the Chen family's patriarch. He sighed with emotion but didn't pay it much attention. As long as they did nothing to this marketplace, it was all good. They seemed to come from the place where Zhuolan was selling disciples. I hope Jiang Hao is all right. Shishi wasn't rich. He had turned even poorer after buying the heaven rejuvenating pill. However, it was worth it. By the end of the year, he would be able to attempt to break through to the peak of the Foundation Establishment realm. After that, he would attempt to break through to the Golden Core realm. Why are you setting up a stall here? Someone suddenly asked. Shishin looked up and saw 3 men approaching. 2 of them looked middle-aged, and the third one was an elderly man. Chief Chen. Shishin stood up. Just selling some items. Chen Baixiao, the patriarch of the Chen family, was a middle-aged man. He was at the early stage of the Golden Core realm. Brother Shu, if you need anything, just let our people know. There's no need to expose yourself to danger here, Chen Baixiao said with a smile. He then pointed to the man beside him. This is Jin, a friend of mine. Senior Jin, hello, said Shishin in greeting. The fact that he could walk side by side with Chief Chen indicated that he was a powerful and important person. Jin Yuan nodded indifferently. I heard that something happened here. Do you want to come with us? Chen Baixiao asked him. Thank you for the invitation, but I must respectfully decline. I promised a friend that I would hold a spot for him here, so I have to wait for him. Shashin didn't want to follow the Golden Core Realm experts. They were probably heading into trouble. For someone like him who was only in the Foundation establishment realm, it could mean death to get involved in something dangerous. It was better to stay behind. "Oh, come on, Brother Shah," said the elderly man. "We are inviting you out of pure goodwill. With 2 Golden Core Realm experts by your side, what do you have to fear?" said the elderly man. He was the same person who had sold the red azure tea to Jiang Hao in the afternoon. He had seen Chief Chen with his friend in the market, so he followed along. "It seems that you don't have much influence here, Chief Chen," Jin Yuan said with a smile. Chen Baixiao's face darkened. "No, it's nothing like that. I think I'll follow along. It would be my honor to accompany Chief Chen," said Shashin. He couldn't refuse. He was just about to leave with them when someone called him. "Shashin, are you busy?" Shashin turned around to look. He saw Jiang Hao walking toward him with 2 children. Shashin smiled in relief. "Jiang Hao Tian, you're here. I saved you the stall, as promised." Elder Chen leaned toward Chief Chen and whispered in his ear. He told the chief about his encounter with Jiang Hao in the afternoon. Seeing Jiang Hao here surprised him. When Chief Chen heard that Jiang Hao had bought the red azure tea from Elder Chen, he became interested. "Friend, would you be able to accompany me inside?" Chief Chen asked. "And you are?" Jiang Hao politely asked. He had never seen the person here before. "This is the Chen family's patriarch. It would also be beneficial for you to be seen with the chief here, especially here in the market while buying stuff," said the elderly man. He thought that Jiang Hao would apologize and show some humility after hearing that. However, Jiang Hao just nodded. Jin Yuan smirked. One was right. Chief Chen's status isn't very intimidating in this place. Chen Baixiao furrowed his brow and looked at Jiang Hao. "Are you busy, friend?" Shashin tried to gesture to Jiang Hao. However, Jiang Hao didn't see him. The Golden Core Realm cultivators were exceptionally strong, but Jiang Hao had no time to accompany them. He stared at Jin Yuan and sensed that he was similar to Po Lang in his aura. For Jiang Hao, the top priority right now was to find the real Zhualan and obtain the stone tablet. "May I ask you a few questions?" he spoke to Jin Yuan. Chen Baixiao's face darkened. Jiang Hao glanced at him. "I apologize for taking up so much of your time. I only have a few questions." Boom. The aura of the Golden Core Realm exploded from Chen Baixiao's body. "Friend, it seems you lack manners," Jin Yuan said sharply. Clang. The half-moon blade flashed with moonlight and sliced through Chen Baixiao's neck. Blood gushed out. Jiang Hao looked at him calmly. "Can I now take up some of your time?" Chapter 139, Hoping they don't offend the Demoness. Chapter 139, Hoping they don't offend the Demoness. Chen Baixiao had no time to think. The moment he saw the moonlight, he froze on the spot. It was like a scythe of death. He thought he was going to die. Fear spread from his heart in an instant, engulfing his entire body. When he regained his senses, he felt intense pain in his neck. He covered the wound on his neck and lowered his head humbly. "Please forgive me, Senior." Elder Chen was stunned. He felt that it was strange and impossible for a mere Foundation establishment realm cultivator to purchase azure red tea in such quantity. He had acted very arrogantly earlier and felt terrified. However, the one who was the most shocked at that moment was Shashin. Was this the same person who had set up the stall near him? A person who could make a Golden Core Realm expert bow in submission with a casual strike of his blade. Jin Yuan looked at Jiang Hao and frowned. He planned to escape quietly, but an aura of the Golden Core Realm suppressed him. He couldn't move. Jiang Hao looked at him and took a step forward. He released his aura and pinned Jin Yuan on the spot. He walked in front of Jin Yuan and placed his hand on his shoulder. He exerted slight force. Jin Yuan knelt on the ground. Jiang Hao placed the half-moon blade on his neck. "Are you from the Great Thousand God Sect? Who are you?" Jin Yuan felt the immense pressure and grimaced. Swoosh. The blade slashed across his neck. Blood gushed out. Jin Yuan groaned but did not yield. Where is Zhuolan? Jiang Hao asked again. Zhuolan. Jin Yuan looked at Jiang Hao. He seemed to realize something. You lured Po Lang out of the city and killed him, didn't you? The things you robbed. Do you even know who they belong to? Who? Jiang Hao asked. Why should I tell you? One day, he will come looking for you. You, a mere golden core realm cultivator, will die. Jin Yuan sneered. You won't live long enough to see our plan come to fruition. You will face Zhuolan, and that day will be your death. In Heavenly Lake? Jiang Hao asked. Jin Yuan seemed momentarily stunned. Jiang Hao no longer wasted words. He unleashed the first form of the Heavenly Blade technique, moonsaying. The blade rose and fell. Jin Yuan was astonished. Then, he was killed. Jiang Hao stabbed him twice and took his storage treasure. It was the same as the one he had obtained from Zhuolan's clone. Nothing of significance was there. He only found about 200 spirit stones. The rest were just ordinary cultivation pills. After taking the spirit stones, he tossed both the storage pouch to Chun Yu and Bruiser. Jiang Hao looked at Shashin. Are you planning to take in disciples? Ah! Shashin was momentarily stunned. Why yes, I think these two kids have decent talent. Jiang Hao nodded. He turned to the children. Become his disciples and work hard. After they were accepted as disciples, Jiang Hao turned to Chen Baixiao to discuss Jin Yuan's appearance. Then, he bid farewell to Shashin. There were no more clues here. He needed to find Zhuolan. Wait, said Bruiser as Jiang Hao turned to leave. Will we meet you in the future? If I pass by here, I'll definitely seek your master. Perhaps we'll meet again, said Jiang Hao calmly. Jiang Hao said goodbye and left after that. Bruiser and Chun Yu knelt in gratitude. Jiang Hao sighed. If Hong Yuye didn't accompany him, he would have no way of venturing out of the sect. He would have to advance beyond the Golden Core realm, otherwise, it would be too dangerous for him to venture out. If he couldn't do that, he might never leave the Heavenly Note sect ever again. Shashin had the opportunity to advance to the Golden Core realm. As disciples to someone in the Golden Core realm, Chun Yu and Bruiser had hope and potential for a brighter future. He had not only provided a safe space for Chun Yu and Bruiser but also offered protection to Shashin. Jiang Hao had done all he could. The rest depended on them. As he watched Jiang Hao leave, Shashin felt many emotions. He was still in disbelief that such a strong individual had been by his side all along. It was no wonder he had so many treasures and pills. Chen Baixiao, on the other hand, breathed a sigh of relief. He looked at the dead Jin Yuan and felt uneasy. If that person had intended to kill him, he would already be dead. Chief Che decided to be kinder when speaking to others from here on out. Otherwise. Afterward, Jiang Hao walked through the streets. Zhuolan would definitely be on guard after what had happened, so there was no need for any concealment. He had killed Zhuolan's clones. One of them had been at the early stage of the Golden Core realm. Apart from 300 spiritual stones, there were no further gains. Jin Yuan had said that Jiang Hao would be killed by Zhuolan sooner or later. Now I have 3,800 spirit stones. After paying the law enforcement hall, I'll be left with 800 only. It seems I need to visit Heavenly Lake, after all. Jiang Hao walked along the road. He was frowning. Jin Yuan said that Zhuolan wanted to kill me. It seemed like they were preparing for my death since I obtained the first stone tablet from Hong Yuye. They probably don't know about her existence. But Zhuolan should be at the Golden Core realm. How can he kill me at the Golden Core realm? Unless, Jiang Hao frowned. Unless he has already advanced to the primordial spirit realm. Jiang Hao was a little worried about that. He had never fought a person of that realm. It's a pity that I can't use the clear and pure heart ability. Otherwise, I could try to comprehend the third form from the 7 forms of the Heavenly Blade. Jiang Hao returned to the inn. He had another question in his mind that bugged him. Jin Yuan had said that Po Lang had been lured outside the fallen city. Hong Yuye had probably done that. Was it really a coincidence that we met Po Lang in Fallen City? Jiang Hao couldn't be sure, but he didn't dare ask Hong Yuye about it. Senior, the backyard is now available, the innkeeper informed him as soon as Jiang Hao walked in through the door. Jiang Hao thanked him. Does anyone have any objections? No. No guest has shown any dissatisfaction with the arrangement, said the innkeeper. Jiang Hao nodded. He walked to the backyard. Everything had been cleared away. There was also a pavilion there with flowers on the ground. Now I have to plant these seeds. I'll then visit the guests and inform them. Hopefully, they won't offend Hong Yuye. Jiang Hao sighed. I also have to make a trip to Heavenly Lake tonight. Chapter 140. Chapter 140. Spending the night in the Demoness room. Chapter 140. Spending the night in the Demoness room. After inspecting the backyard, Jiang Hao took out the clear snow seeds. Hong Yuye wanted him to find a plant similar to the heavenly fragrance Dao flower, so he wanted to plant these fast. Even if he didn't know how long he would stay here, he had to prepare in advance. If necessary, he could take the seeds with him. He used the daily appraisal on the seeds. 3 days. No blue bubbles then. The black lotus flower had given him a blue bubble, but he had to water it for 7 days. This spirit herb only took 3 days to germinate, which meant that it might give him only green or white bubbles. However, they might not stay here for that long. Perhaps if they found Zhuolan tonight and obtained the stone tablet, they would have to rush to other places. After we get the 3 tablets, it would be convenient if combining them could pinpoint the exact location of the next tablet. Jiang Hao planted the seeds and watered them with spirit liquid. He then headed to Hong Yuye's room. While he was at the door, a young girl approached him nervously. Should I clean this guest's room? She asked. Clean room 5. Leave this room as it is. The girl nodded and went to clean Jiang Hao's room. Jiang Hao knocked on the door and entered. He didn't dare to let anyone inside Hong Yuye's room. He didn't want to make her unhappy. Any clues? Asked Hong Yuye, looking out the window. She was wearing a red and white dress. She sat by the window. Jiang Hao didn't dare look at her directly. The heaven extinction Gu poison did unimaginable things to his heart. I did find something, but the 3 Zhuolans turned out to be all clones. It seems like he knows about your arrival, senior. He is currently planning a counterattack. Jiang Hao hesitated for a moment. According to a disciple of the Great Thousand God sect, Zhuolan might have even surpassed the Golden Core realm. Hong Yuye was silent. There might be something near Heavenly Lake that connects to Zhuolan's plans. I plan to go there and find out tonight. What about the stone tablet? Asked Hong Yuye. No news yet. Jiang Hao shook his head. And the courtyard? It's ready. I planted the seeds too. They should germinate in 3 days. Hong Yuye slowly turned to look at Jiang Hao. She seemed intrigued. What kind of seed did you plant? Jiang Hao lowered his head. It's a flower similar to the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. What's its name? She asked. Clear snow seed, Jiang Hao said in apprehension. Jiang Hao half expected her to slam him against the wall, but she didn't speak and just poured tea for herself. He had no idea what she was thinking. He felt relieved. At least he wasn't flung into a wall. That was an improvement. While drinking tea, Hong Yuye took out a small box and placed it on the table. I won't make you do things for me for nothing. This is for you. Jiang Hao was surprised. He thought she would give him something after all this was over. He approached the table and picked up the box. He sat down on the empty chair to examine it. When he opened the box, a refreshing fragrance wafted out. It was a snow-white pill that he had never seen before. Even just the scent of the pill made his blood and spiritual energy surge. Is it a pill to help me advance further? Wondered Jiang Hao. Maybe she is giving it to me because I mentioned that Zhuolan might be beyond the Golden Core realm. Maybe I'm supposed to take the pill and advance and defeat Zhuolan by myself. He wondered how much this excellent pill could be sold for. But first, he needed to know the name of the pill. He looked at Hong Yuye. What kind of pill is this? Try taking it and see. Hong Yuye casually sipped her tea. Jiang Hao took out the pill. It felt cold in his hands. He placed it in his mouth. In an instant, the cold feeling spread in his mouth as the pill dissolved. The coolness traveled down his throat and spread throughout his entire body. He suddenly felt cold all over as though it was winter. The coolness rushed to his mind. It opened up his thoughts, and countless sparks of impulses collided in his mind. He felt clear and empty. On a whim, Jiang Hao activated his clear and pure heart ability. The chilly sensation rushed to the ability in an instant. The previously damaged clear and pure heart ability gradually began to heal. So, this pill is meant to repair the clear and pure heart ability. Without that particular ability, his progress had been stunted. He couldn't comprehend the third move of the Heavenly Blade, no matter how many times he studied the 7 forms of Heavenly Blade. He was curious as to how Hong Yuye had discovered that his clear and pure heart ability was damaged. Was it because of the Nameless Manual? In that case, he had to further study the Nameless Manual to better assess his enemies in the future. Afterward, he let go of his thoughts and began to heal. After a while, Jiang Hao completely absorbed the pill. Not only did his clear and pre-heart ability recover but also surpassed its previous state. Once his condition was stabilized, he slowly opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was Hong Yuye sitting across from him, drinking tea. Then he noticed the sunlight filtering in. The light fell on the side of her face, and a gentle breeze swayed her hair. It was difficult for him to breathe. He finally collected his composure enough to see that it was already dawn. He was surprised. Had he taken the whole night to absorb the pill? Is it already morning? I thought you were an overly cautious person, said Hong Yuye. Why did you take the pill without any questions this time? I figured that if you intended to harm me, you wouldn't have to go through all that trouble. He couldn't refuse anyway. The heaven extinction GU poison was a testament to that. It was better to just grin and bear it. If he kept her happy, he would suffer less. Hong Yuye glanced at Jiang Hao. Continue to investigate the stone tablet, said Hong Yuye, putting down her teacup. If there is no progress regarding this, you know the consequences. I understand, Senior. Jiang Hao stood up and said his farewell. Then he brewed another pot of tea for Hong Yuye. Buy some snacks for me, said Hong Yuye. Jiang Hao nodded and didn't dare to ask what kind of snacks she wanted. If he didn't ask, he could decide on his own. If he dared to ask her, she would choose something exorbitantly expensive. Jiang Hao's spirit stones would be gone in an instant. I'm going out for a stroll tonight, Hong Yuye said. Jiang Hao understood that she wanted him to accompany her. He agreed to it and then headed to his room. As soon as he closed the door, he saw the young girl cleaning the corridor. He had seen her yesterday. She was startled and quickly lowered her head to apologize. Jiang Hao didn't mind. He prepared to go out to buy some snacks for Hong Yuye. He bought ordinary pastries. He tasted them before buying them. He knew they were good enough. As expected, Hong Yuye did not say anything. After that, he went to the backyard and watered the seeds with spirit liquid. In the backyard, Jiang Hao saw a little girl watering the flowers under the pavilion. When she saw Jiang Hao come in, she bowed to him. Sir, did you plant this for your wife? She must be very happy to see it, she said. The sudden question made Jiang Hao break out in a cold sweat. He calmed himself and looked at the girl. She must be around 12 years old. He did not understand why a child would ask something like that. Then he realized something. He had seen her twice. Yesterday, she had asked him if she could clean the rooms. This morning, she was outside cleaning the corridors when he came out of Hong Yuye's room. Jiang Hao had stayed in Hong Yuye's room for the entire night. A man and a woman in one room. The little girl might have misunderstood. Chapter 141, Chapter 141, explaining that he and the Demoness weren't a couple. Chapter 141, explaining that he and the Demoness weren't a couple. Jiang Hao lowered his head. The girl had misunderstood. Nothing had happened in that room, and Hong Yuye wasn't his wife. He wanted to clarify, but he realized that it looked suspicious. Even if he said they weren't married, the fact still remained that he had been in her room for the entire night. Jiang Hao suspected that the young girl would misunderstand it even more if he tried to explain further. It was troublesome. He couldn't kill her to silence her anyway. He let out a sigh. Do more work and ask fewer questions. That way, you'll create fewer problems for yourself. Asking too many personal questions might get you into trouble with other guests, you know. The young girl seemed to realize that she might have said something wrong. She lowered her head. Yes, I understand. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. The guests staying at this inn are not ordinary people. You shouldn't ask or gossip about their personal lives. Do you understand? Asked Jiang Hao in a gentler tone. I understand, the young girl said, lowering her head. Jiang Hao took out a copper coin and handed it to her. Here. Take this. Thank you. The young girl accepted the copper coin. Jiang Hao nodded and then left the backyard. Before leaving, he instructed her not to disturb the soil around the spirit herbs. As for the matter of what she thought was between him and Hong Yuye, he didn't care. She was just a child with a passing curiosity. She would forget it in a day. However, if Hong Yuye happened to know about it. Last night, I regained my divine ability but missed the chance to visit Heavenly Lake. I wonder if I'll find anything there now. On the bright side, my clear and pure heart ability is back. I can start studying the third form of the Heavenly Blade. It had taken so long for him to learn the third form. He could finally master it. However, it would take a few more days. He was still just curious about the pill that Hong Yuye had given him. What exactly was it? Its effects were surprisingly good. It would probably cost a lot of spiritual stones to buy one. Keeping a pill like that would definitely be a wise choice. Other people rarely possessed divine abilities, but he had 3 of them. If he experienced something that damaged his divine ability, it would be difficult to fight. Divine abilities were useful, but excessive use could damage them. Once damaged, they needed to be nurtured for a long time to get them to their full potential. He hadn't asked the name of the pill. He just needed to resolve the matter fast and return to the Heavenly Note sect to investigate. He left Heavenly Earth City and headed toward Heavenly Lake. Heavenly Lake wasn't far from Heavenly Earth City. Otherwise, he never would have dared to venture out of the city on his own. In front of a massive building, he saw some guards. They were 2 cultivators in the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. They appeared to be in their 30s. They seemed relaxed. Occasionally, they exchanged a few words with each other. It seemed like they were not very enthusiastic about guarding this place. Jiang Hao passed by them and entered the building. The entrance led to a wide and spacious area. In the center, there was an altar stained with blood. Jiang Hao touched the bloodstains. They were still fresh. This is recent. Jiang Hao recalled Zuolan, or at least his clone whom he had dealt with at the market. Maybe this was Zuolan's doing. Upon careful observation, he noticed that the altar was different from the building. It seemed recently constructed. He activated daily appraisal. Jiang Hao sighed warily. Waiting a few more days wasn't a problem, but, by then, the enemy would advance to the primordial spirit realm. I need to find him before that, or I can't face him. Jiang Hao walked up to the altar and saw the place where the stone tablet was supposed to be placed. He wondered if he could also obtain the power of the primordial spirit realm if he placed his stone tablets there. However, this kind of power would likely come with side effects. I wonder if the temporary owner of the stone tablets is the person Hong Yuye is looking for. According to what they knew so far, there was only one owner behind each stone tablet. The appearance of those from the Great Thousand God sect in the Heavenly Note sect had something to do with the owner of the tablets. I don't know if he is from the Great Thousand God sect, or he is only pulling their strings. Jiang Hao didn't know anything for sure right now. The only way he could find out the truth was by capturing Zuolan. As for the whereabouts of Zuolan, it was still a mystery. After hesitating for a moment, Jiang Hao decided not to destroy the altar. If he did, he might not be able to find Zuolan. This was a fairly safe place to lure Zuolan. I should find Fang Jin and the others and ask them not to stir up trouble for now. He worried that Zuolan would keep delaying his plan if Fang Jin and his group continued causing trouble. If that happened, It was very likely that the 3 months he had would be wasted. After leaving the building, inspected the surroundings. He discovered some formations and hidden traps. There were restriction traps and talisman traps. It would be so easy to fall into such traps if one was not aware. Jiang Hao carefully noted down each trap to prevent any mishaps when he came back here in 9 days. Unfortunately, he had very few items on him, and his proficiency in formations was almost non-existent. Otherwise, he could have utilized these traps to his advantage. This was an unavoidable situation. He had been practicing cultivation for over 10 years, but only recently had started learning talisman making. The time was too short to learn other things. The most pressing matter was to focus on improving his cultivation for now. Jiang Hao went to the backyard after he headed back to the inn. Looking at the yard with scarce spiritual energy, he felt that it would be better to buy some spirit herbs directly instead of cultivating them. This way, the fragrance could cover the surroundings immediately, and the spiritual energy could gather quickly. Unfortunately, transplanting spirit herbs often led to unexpected problems. Moreover, they were very expensive. After hesitating for a moment, Jiang Hao used some spirit stones to arrange a gathering formation in the surroundings. That way, spirit stones would act as a substitute for insufficient spiritual energy. After setting the formation, Jiang Hao looked up at the sky and realized that it would soon get dark. He needed to go up and find Hong Yuye. Just as he had returned to the lobby, he heard someone complaining. "We almost found him. Zhuolan has some treasures on him. Otherwise, I would have definitely found him through his clone," Lan Jin complained. "Not finding him in person is not a big deal. It's a pity that we couldn't find out where he's holding the captives. Let's go to the Heavenly Lake tomorrow and see if there are any other clues," Bai Qiong said. "I don't know who killed all of Zhuolan's clones. Otherwise, we wouldn't have lost all the leads," Lan Jin said angrily. At that moment, they noticed Jiang Hao coming out from the backyard. The 3 of them were taken aback. Jiang Hao looked calm and collected as always, but deep down, he felt embarrassed. They were complaining about him. He had killed Zhuolan's clones. Chapter 142, Chapter 142, Risking One's Life for a Cause. Chapter 142, Risking One's Life for a Cause. Fellow disciple Jiang? Fang Jin was surprised. Seeing Jiang Hao coming out of the backyard, he understood that the person living next to them on the 6th floor was him. With his strength, it wasn't surprising that Chen had been injured. Fang Jin was certain that Jiang Hao wasn't in the Foundation establishment realm, after all. "Fellow disciple Fang," Jiang Hao said politely. Since they had met, he needed to discuss something with these people. "Just happened to drop by." Fang Jin pointed to the seat next to him and invited to sit down. The 1st floor was the dining area, equipped with many tables and chairs. The inn wasn't receiving many guests lately, so it seemed spacious. If someone came into the inn to cause any problem, the staff explained the situation to them politely. They didn't want to offend someone like Jiang Hao again. Lan Jin looked at Jiang Hao with curiosity. She also thought that the person living next door was Jiang Hao. She was very curious about his true strength. Logically, he shouldn't be much stronger than her seniors. If she challenged him, it would seem presumptuous. Fang Jin and Bai Qiong would definitely criticize her for being reckless. If it were within the sect, it wouldn't matter. She decided to observe him silently. "Friend, when did you arrive?" Fang Jin asked casually. "We arrived just 2 days ago. We are staying in rooms 1, 2, and 3. I arrived a day or 2 ago, too. We are staying in rooms 5 and 6. At this moment, a plate of cold dishes and peanuts were placed on the table. These were to serve as appetizers as they waited for the main dish. "Did you have them tidy up the backyard?" Lan Jin asked. "Yes. I came to request you to not disturb the backyard for a while," said Jiang Hao. "Friend Jiang, you are too polite," Fang Jin said. "We'll certainly not disturb the backyard. But we are curious though. What are you doing in the backyard?" "I'm planting some spirit herbs because I'll be staying here a while," said Jiang Hao. "Is it for the woman who travels with you?" Bai Qiong asked. Jiang Hao nodded. He didn't know how to introduce Hong Yuye to them. Should I call her a senior sister? Thought Jiang Hao. I don't know if Hong Yuye will get angry if I tell them about her. He just nodded and didn't say anything further about her. He could come up with something if they asked next time. Jiang Hao was surprised to know that these 3 people stayed in the rooms next to them. It was just as well. He could talk to them about matters concerning Zuolan. What brings you here this time? Fang Jin poured a cup of tea for Jiang Hao. Are you here because of Zuolan? Jiang Hao asked straightforwardly. I know you've been chasing Zuolan. Did you find any new clues? The question caught the 3 people off guard. Did you kill Zuolan's clone? Asked Lan Jin suddenly. Jiang Hao took a sip of tea. Unfortunately, sometimes he acted too recklessly. Fang Jin and the others were also curious, but they didn't question him further. It was best if all of their paths overlapped somehow. It was even better for them to be on the same side. If not, they wouldn't cause trouble for one another. Jiang Hao put down his tea. Zuolan was supposed to appear by the heavenly lake for the final ritual. But because you caused trouble for him, he is going to do it in 9 days. If he doesn't show himself, will you be able to find him in another way? Fang Jin and the others were alarmed at that. Do you know where Zuolan is? I don't know. I only know that 9 days later, he will appear at the altar by the heavenly lake. The person you're looking for will probably also be there, Jiang Hao said. If he knew where Zuolan was, he would have already gone ahead and dealt with him. Do you want us to refrain from doing anything in these few days? Bai Qiong asked. You can consider visiting Heavenly Lake first before considering my suggestion, said. Fang Jin nodded. We will seriously consider that. Could you please provide more details, friend? The altar requires the fresh blood of talented young boys and girls with cultivation potential. In the final ritual, the children will be present, said Jiang. How? So, I'm guessing that the disciple who has been taken away from your sect will be at the altar on that day. However, there was one thing he couldn't figure out. Zuolan was just a golden core cultivator. How were the people of the Bright Moon sect unable to locate him? Jiang Hao hesitated for a while and then asked them. We are also somewhat puzzled. Bai Qiong frowned. At first, we suspected that there might be powerful individuals among them, but it doesn't seem like it. Then we speculated that there might be magical abilities or treasures hiding our disciples' location. Recently, one of our senior uncles was intercepted by people from the Heavenly Saint sect, who are close to Zuolan's group. It's also possible that they were the ones who attacked. There is another possibility. Do you know the origin of Zuolan? Fang Jin asked. Jiang Hao took a sip of tea and said calmly, the Great Thousand God sect. You have good insight. We also came to this speculation after encountering his clone. It should be the Great Thousand God sect's clone, said Fang Jin. The Great Thousand God sect is located in the Milky Way Sea region. If they are here, they must be helping someone. The Great Thousand God sect was originally driven to the Milky Way Sea region by our Bright Moon sect. So, it's possible that they can locate our sect easily. Jiang Hao nodded. This was the first time he had heard of this. Among these possibilities, what worried him the most was the connection to the Heavenly Saint sect. He had a hostile relationship with them. These people seemed to be convinced that he knew the secret of the treasure hidden in the mine and wanted to extract that information from him. Even senior sister Ming Yi, the saintess in training, couldn't do anything about it. In the future, they might just hunt Jiang Hao down. But there was still time. If 10 years were not enough, then 100 years. One day they would understand that Yang Hua had not revealed the secret to anyone. After talking for a while, Jiang Hao headed to his room. Jiang Hao also learned that the seniors from the Bright Moon sect would be arriving soon. He had already decided to give up on the mission of the Law Enforcement Hall. These people were relatively easy to get along with. For the Bright Moon sect to go to such lengths for a disciple who hadn't even entered the sect yet, it would be troublesome if Jiang Hao stole one of their disciples who was already a member of the sect. In a demonic sect, anything was possible. Upstairs, Jiang Hao visited every guest one by one. He requested them to stay away from the backyard for the time being. Chen Quan and the others assured him that no one would disturb it, and even said they would keep an eye on it. This made Jiang Hao feel a bit embarrassed. He gave them a bit of the Snow Queen spring tea as thanks. Chen Quan didn't want to accept it, but Jiang Hao had already left. He reluctantly kept it. Chapter 143 Chapter 143 How to introduce the Demoness. Chapter 143 How to introduce the Demoness. In the backyard, the sky had already darkened. It was livelier outside today. Jiang Hao had heard from the innkeeper that it was the Lantern Festival, which occurred once every 3 years. "Senior, when do you plan to depart?" he asked. At this moment, Hong Yuye was sitting in the pavilion and looking at the surrounding flowers. She was lost in thought. Finally, her gaze fell on the spot where the clear snow seeds were planted. "When will they sprout?" she asked. "Maybe tomorrow or the day after tomorrow," Jiang Hao said. In truth, it would be the day after tomorrow. Tomorrow was the last day of watering it, but he didn't want to be too specific in his response. Hong Yuye slowly stood up and looked at Jiang Hao calmly. "How long do we plan to stay here?" she asked. "At least 9 days," Jiang Hao said. During the 9 days, he intended to search for clues while studying the third form of the Heavenly Blade technique. He needed to be well prepared to deal with Xuelan. According to his plan, he wanted to defeat him before he advanced to the primordial spirit realm. However, nothing ever went as planned. Therefore, he needed to be adequately prepared, just in case. Hong Yuye didn't say anything. She simply walked outside. "Senior, are you going to see the lanterns?" Jiang Hao asked as he followed. Hong Yuye glanced at him but remained silent. Jiang Hao was surprised. Her gaze mocked him. It seemed that Hong Yuye had other reasons for going out. Watching the lanterns float in the sky was simply beneath her. Jiang Hao noticed that the city was brightly illuminated tonight. People were bustling about, talking to each other, and having a good time. It reminded him of his childhood. His stepmother, despite her flaws, had taken him along to similar festivals. Back then, he was too young to work. So, his father would carry him on his back. He remembered watching the fireworks once. It moved his heart to the core. During this journey, he had experienced many things that he couldn't have fathomed if he stayed inside the sect. The half a year he had spent to controlling his mind couldn't compare to the progress he had made on his journey. He had a feeling that once he found his stepmother and his father, his state of mind would undergo another transformation. Would he be able to let go at that time? He didn't know. But it was precisely because it was unknown that he needed to see, to experience, and to comprehend. Hiding in the sect would do nothing for his maturity. Only by immersing oneself in the world could one transcend it. At that moment, a pleasant, bird-like voice sounded beside him. "Do you often daydream?" "No, of course not. There are so many people here tonight, so I was just thinking about how to guide you through the crowd," said Jiang Hao hurriedly. "It's not a coincidence that you encountered the deceptive spirit beast." Hong Yuye chuckled. Indeed, it wasn't a coincidence, thought Jiang Hao. It's because of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. Jiang Hao felt that there was nothing wrong with raising the spirit beast. In fact, he might raise another one if he encountered it somewhere. After fully awakening its bloodline, he would let it go. The spirit beast was full of lies. It would someday get Jiang Hao in trouble. "What do you think is the fundamental difference between you and your spirit beast?" Hong Yuye asked as they walked along the road. She walked a little ahead. Although there were many people on the street, the path was always free and spacious for her. It was as if the people around them were actively avoiding them. Jiang Hao didn't pay much attention to it. He wasn't surprised. "The difference should be quite obvious," Jiang Hao said. Let's just say it is, for argument's sake," said Hong Yuye. She stopped in front of a mask stall. "Senior, do you want one?" Jiang Hao asked curiously. Hong Yuye shook her head and continued walking forward. The place was very lively. Children ran around and laughed. "You can't catch me. You can't catch me. You little rascal, if you get lost, you'll cry again." Jiang Hao watched as a young woman scolded a little boy while chasing after him. I wasn't like this when I was a child. Jiang Hao couldn't help but compare his childhood to the happy children. He then shook his head slightly. He felt pathetic that he was comparing himself to a child. He followed Hong Yuye until they walked out of the crowd and arrived at a pavilion by the river. Lanterns were hanging around. Some lanterns on the river drifted by. They hadn't carried any teapot or stove, so they couldn't make tea here. They could only look around. After hesitating for a moment, Jiang Hao looked at Hong Yuye. Senior, would you like to release a river lantern? Hong Yuye looked at him with her beautiful eyes. Her eyes mocked him. It seemed to call him childish. They just looked around the pavilion quietly. A gentle breeze rustled past. The edges of Hong Yuye's dress swayed gently in the wind. Jiang Hao could smell a faint fragrance. The distinctly familiar scent made him recall the first time he had sensed it. That the night when Jiang Hao stopped himself. He was afraid to think about that night. How did you introduce me? Hong Yuye suddenly asked. Jiang Hao was confused. Didn't you say someone asked you about me? Hong Yuye stared at Jiang Hao. How did you introduce me? Jiang Hao thought of that little girl who had been cleaning the corridor. Did she hear about it? He broke out in a cold sweat. I haven't introduced you yet, Jiang Hao said. He hadn't mentioned her to anyone yet. How do you plan to do it? Hong Yuye sounded as though she was mocking him again. Senior, what do you think would be a suitable response? Asked Jiang Hao. However, questioning her back seemed to make her irritated. He felt a stifling force that seemed capable of obliterating the entire city in an instant. Jiang Hao hastily spoke up. I'll wait for them to ask again. The aura completely vanished. Hong Yuye didn't ask him anything further. Young Master Chen, look over there. There's a pavilion from where we can watch the river lanterns. Laughter came from nearby. Jiang Hao turned to see a group of people approaching the pavilion. There was a man and a woman at the front, followed by some attendants. The woman was the one who had spoken. Oh, there are people up there, said the woman regretfully when she saw Jiang Hao and Hong Yuye. What a pity. She looked at the young man beside her, who was most probably young Master Chen. Jiang Hao also looked at the man. He wasn't an ordinary non-cultivator. He was at the 5th level of the lifeblood refinement realm. When young Master Chen noticed Jiang Hao looking at him, he instinctively gestured for his men to shoo them away. However, when he sensed Jiang Hao's cultivation realm, he stopped the attendants, turned around, and slapped the woman across the face. You know there are people here, and yet you want to interrupt them? This slap left the woman stunned. Jiang Hao sighed, feeling that these people were less interesting than the people on the street. Let's go. Hong Yuye stepped away from the pavilion. Jiang Hao nodded and followed. Where do you want to go next, senior? To release the river lanterns, Hong Yuye said. Jiang Hao was speechless. I thought she saw it as childish. Chapter 144, Chapter 144, Making a Wish. Chapter 144, Making a Wish. Hong Yuye walked along the riverbank with Jiang Hao. She headed toward the crowd. There were stalls selling river lanterns. If they wanted to release lanterns, they had to go there and buy one. As for the young master of the Chen family, Jiang Hao didn't pay much attention to him. He was just a little curious. The gaze of the people here was distorted by Hong Yuye's power. What had the people seen when they looked at the pavilion? Out of curiosity, he asked Hong Yuye. However, Hong Yuye just glanced at him with an icy smile and said nothing in reply. He felt uneasy. His heart raced. He approached the river and looked at his reflection in the water. He saw his normal self. It seemed that he was unaffected. Jiang Hao couldn't figure out Hong Yuye. He didn't know how she would distort her appearance in the eyes of the others while remaining as she was at that same time. But it didn't matter. At least he was safe. He still had things to do. As long as he was careful, there shouldn't be any grave consequences. After a while, they reached the upper part of the river. The area was wide, and many people were holding river lanterns in their hands. There were stalls that sold various types of lanterns. Hong Yuye found a spot to sit and wait, while Jiang Hao picked 2 lotus-shaped lanterns. He handed one of the lanterns to Hong Yuye. I heard from the merchant that releasing river lanterns is a tradition where you wish and pray for blessings. Senior, do you want to make a wish? Hong Yuye looked at the lotus-shaped lantern in her hand. She smiled. And who do you make a wish to? The river god, said Jiang Hao. You want me to make a wish and pray to the river god? Hong Yuye looked into Jiang Hao's eyes. She looked amused. Jiang Hao felt helpless. Maybe we can make a wish and pray to the heavens instead. Perhaps she found that more acceptable. What is your wish, she asked. Mining. He didn't say that out loud. He lowered his head. Most of the time, I just wish for a quiet and peaceful life. Is it not peaceful now? Hong Yuye asked, sitting by the riverbank. Under your protection, it has indeed been peaceful, Jiang Hao said. It was only a partial truth. It was true that he was safe from formidable enemies, but he didn't entirely feel safe from Hong Yuye herself. He also sat down by the riverbank and released the lantern on the river's surface. When it came to making a wish, he felt a little lost. Memories of childhood flitted in his mind. It seemed that what he truly cared about was his family. Mining and cultivation were something he could strive to achieve on his own. He had always done that his whole life. There was no need to make a wish about those things. Only his stepmother and his father were something he couldn't reconcile with. So, he wished to see them. I wonder if my stepmother will still treat me badly after seeing what I have become. He released the river lantern, and it floated downstream. Hong Yuye also let go of the lantern in her hand. Jiang Hao stole a glance at her. She seemed as quiet and calm as ever. After that, the 2 of them stood up and watched the lanterns drift away downriver. So many lanterns covered the surface of the river. It looked resplendent and beautiful. Let's go back, Hong Yuye said. Jiang Hao sensed that her mood wasn't that good. She seemed to have something on her mind. They turned around and slowly walked back to the inn. The way was crowded, and it took them quite some time to reach the inn. After Hong Yuye went back to her room, Jiang Hao opened his own room door. He looked at the moon outside the window. The little outing was indeed for the Lantern Festival. Jiang Hao was somewhat puzzled. It's better that way. Whatever Hong Yuye intended to do would be too fatal for this city. As for him, he had actually gained quite a lot tonight. When he had made a wish on the lantern, he had understood many things about himself. He remembered a world that was plentiful and then was hit by a famine. He realized that natural disasters tore families apart. With a sigh, Jiang Hao sat on the bed and took out the 7 forms of the Heavenly Blade Book. After adjusting his state, he activated the clear and pure heart divine ability. He felt at peace and his thoughts were clear. H found answers to many of his doubts at that moment. This time, he could truly comprehend the 3rd form of the Heavenly Blade. Early the next morning, Jiang Hao wearily closed the book. His progress had been quick this time around. He vaguely felt that his mastery of divine abilities had become more efficient. It meant that his abilities had improved too. The pill given by Hong Yuye was excellent. Whether it was pills, formations, or techniques, everything that came from her was exemplary. But Jiang Hao felt a little regretful. He probably couldn't afford such a pill. Putting away the book, Jiang Hao went to the backyard to water the spirit herbs with spirit liquid. It would sprout tomorrow. Maybe bubbles would appear too. He then went out to buy some snacks. On his way back, he saw the little girl from before. She was holding some snacks in her hands, which smelled very delicious. Little girl, Jiang Hao called out to her. The girl raised her head to look at Jiang Hao. Yes. How can I help you? Where did you buy those snacks? Jiang Hao asked. These. The girl showed him the snacks in her hands. I bought them from Granny Shu on the street. They're the most delicious in the entire Heavenly Earth City. Jiang Hao thanked her and hurried out again. In the eyes of the little girl, Jiang Hao loved his wife so much. Jiang Hao placed 2 types of snacks in front of Hong Yuye. One looked good and tasted decent, while the other was more delicious but looked a little ordinary. He didn't know which one Hong Yuye would like to eat. Jiang Hao then returned to his room to start making talismans. He made talismans in the morning and investigated the matter with Zuolan in the afternoon to look for any other clues. The next day, a pleasant fragrance wafted from the backyard and surprised everyone in the inn. Just a whiff of it made them feel refreshed and clear-minded. Jiang Hao walked to the backyard and saw 2 green bubbles. He felt a bit disappointed. They could only be sold for 14 spirit stones. Clear snow. I didn't expect him to plant that, said Bai Qiong. The previous day, they had gone to the heavenly lake and discovered the psychic altar. They decided to follow Jiang Hao's advice and secretly investigate for a few days without alerting the enemy. This spirit herb is not easy to plant. Maybe they just planted it temporarily, Fang Jin said in admiration. He admired Jiang Hao for being able to tend to spirit herbs while pursuing the enemy. After that, they didn't pay much attention to it. Since the sprouting of the clear snow, Jiang Hao made his talismans in the backyard. The spirit herbs would help increase the rate of success. However, he was surprised to find that his success rate had decreased. Hong Yuye was affecting him. His state of mind was unstable, which was one of the reasons. The other reason was that her constant scary aura made it difficult for him to focus on anything else. Chapter 145, Chapter 145, Another night passed. Chapter 145, Another night passed. In theory, as long as Jiang Hao didn't look at Hong Yuye, his heart and mind would remain calm. However, being close to her still had some effect. Hong Yuye instinctively emitted her aura. It was very subtle, but it was there. It was always there whenever she zoned out and affected Jiang Hao as he sat there trying to make his talismans. He was helpless and decided to head back to his room. He spent most of his time in the backyard when he wasn't making talismans. Jiang Hao was mainly worried that someone would bump into Hong Yuye, and he had no idea what would happen if he wasn't there. To him, Hong Yuye was a terrifying existence that could erupt in anger at any time, but others were unaware of it. Once provoked, the entire inn might be destroyed. There was no shortage of ignorant and arrogant people in the world. Someone might just anger her. That was why Jiang Hao felt worried when he was in the backyard and not with Hong Yuye. Days went by in this manner. Finally, it was nearing the day when Zuolan would perform his ritual. It was tomorrow. During the past few days, Jiang Hao had accompanied Hong Yuye to the backyard, made talismans in the afternoon, and went out to investigate to find more clues about Zuolan. In the evening, he brought back some snacks. At night, he focused on studying the 3rd form of the heavenly sword, the meteor technique. He had just finished comprehending it last night. It had great power, but he hadn't tested it yet. It was somewhat difficult to control. Unfortunately, he didn't have more time. Otherwise, he would have at least comprehended the ability to use it more effectively. You seem to be overthinking things, Hong Yuye said. In the backyard, Jiang Hao was taking care of the snow-clear herbs. Under his care, occasional white bubbles popped up. His spirit was strengthened. However, he didn't want to absorb the bubbles in front of Hong Yuye, so he didn't collect too many bubbles. With Hong Yuye's understanding of the nameless secret manual, she might notice something. But Jiang Hao was puzzled by her words. Overthinking? You're very cautious, Hong Yuye added. I'm all right, said Jiang Hao. Although he didn't know what she exactly meant, he had always lived that way. His strength had never been enough, so he had to be very careful, especially since he was in a demonic sect. Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao and chuckled. These past few days, were you worried about others offending me? Oh, that's what she means. Jiang Hao nodded. I was afraid that others might disturb your peace. Is that so? Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao. Then let's assume that's what you were thinking about. At that moment, she looked at the teapot on the table. Let's change the tea. I just brewed it, said Jiang Hao. The Snow Queen spring tea was costly too. He felt it was a bit of a waste to discard the tea. Take out the best tea leaves you have and brew them. Hong Yuye poured the tea into the bushes. The best tea. Jiang Hao instantly thought of the red azure tea. He hadn't told her that he had bought it already. Jiang Hao feared that she might finish it too soon and would expect him to buy more with the spirit stones he had set aside for other things. He didn't know how she had found out. Helplessly, he took out the red azure tea. Are you confused? Hong Yuye smiled. Heavenly Earth City isn't a very big city. There aren't many people staying in the inn. The red azure tea is very expensive, and it's considered something similar to a precious treasure. If someone buys it, it becomes major news for people here. Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao, and her eyes glittered mischievously. Who in the entire Heavenly Earth City would buy something like that? Jiang Hao realized that it had been foolish to think he could hide anything from her at all. He could have said he didn't have it. Do you think that you would get away by saying you didn't buy it? Hong Yuye picked up the teacup and sniffed at it. The fragrance of the red azure tea can subtly affect any other tea leaves it's kept with. You placed the Snow Queen spring tea right next to the red azure tea, didn't you? Jiang Hao couldn't help but sigh. He needed to keep up with his knowledge of tea. At that moment, the fragrance of the red azure tea emanated from the tea. It was refreshing. After pouring a cup for Hong Yuye, Jiang Hao sat down and poured himself a cup. Jiang Hao had spent 9,300 spirit stones on this tea. He wanted to have a cup. The aroma of the tea permeated the air. Many people in the inn caught a whiff of it too. Even Fang Jin and the two women were surprised by the strong fragrance of the tea. Red azure tea. Lan Jin exclaimed. I've only seen our master brew it before. Who brought such tea here? The fragrance came from the backyard, Bai Cheung said in surprise. Who are they? I don't know what it tastes like, Fang Jin said with some emotion. I'll take advantage of the tea fragrance and cultivate on the second floor. I need to prepare for tomorrow. Tomorrow was the day of the ritual that Jiang Hao had mentioned, and Zuolan would be there. They might find the lost disciple tomorrow. Jiang Hao drank a cup of tea and felt the abundant spiritual energy. The tea was smooth and gentle, and it instantly refreshed his whole body. This made him delighted. Instinctively, he started practicing the third form of the heavenly blade that he hadn't fully grasped yet. This time, the flow of power was smooth, as if the spiritual energy brought by the red azure tea was assisting him. Jiang Hao felt as if he was holding a blade in his hand and swinging it around using the meteor technique. The power circulated within his body, and the technique began to take shape in his mind. As he practiced, Jiang Hao felt that his progress in mastering the third form was becoming faster. He even began practicing the first and second forms. For a while, he practiced all three moves. Time passed, and the special effects brought by the red azure tea gradually faded away. The pleasant and refreshing feeling slowly dissipated, but Jiang Hao had gained insights into all three forms of the heavenly blade. When he opened his eyes again, the sun was directly overhead. It felt like time hadn't passed at all. Is it still noon? He asked. Noon of the next day, said Hong Yuye. What? Jiang Hao was surprised. This was the day that Zuolan would appear at the altar. Although he knew Zuolan would make a move today, he wasn't certain about the time. It could be in the morning or the evening. Jiang Hao had already missed the morning. He had wasted precious time. Senior, we should set off, he said. This time, they had accurate information about Zuolan. Hong Yuye wanted the stone tablet as soon as possible, so she would definitely go. As Hong Yuye stood up, Jiang Hao took the teapot and looked at the tea leaves inside, thinking of using them to nourish the soil. Drinking a cup greatly enhanced his understanding of the heavenly blade. He could now freely use the third form. He wondered if it would have the same effect next time. After a moment, he checked his divine abilities and the attacks stored on his wrist guard. Jiang Hao and Hong Yuye left the inn. In the forest, the sun shone through the tree leaves. Jiang Hao and Hong Yuye stood beneath the tree, looking at a distant building. That was where the altar was located. There was a window that provided a view of the inside, but so far, there was no sign of any activity. We may have to wait until evening, Jiang Hao said. Hong Yuye leaped and sat on a tree branch. It was too conspicuous, and Jiang Hao wanted to warn her to not attract attention. However, he didn't dare say that aloud. It made sense that she wanted to sit on a branch. That way, nobody would notice her. At night, moonlight spilled from the sky, covering the pitch-black forest with a silvery veil. Jiang Hao looked up at the moonlight, then looked in the direction of the altar. He noticed that the altar emitted a faint glow under the moonlight. It seemed that the power was being activated, but it was still not strong enough. At that moment, he sensed someone approaching the altar. "He's here." Chapter 146, Chapter 146. What can you do to me? Chapter 146. What can you do to me? Hong Yuye sat on a tree branch, gazing into the distance. Jiang Hao stood beneath the tree. He felt that Hong Yuye belonged to the red shadow in the darkness. It was an eerie thought. Jiang Hao didn't pay attention to Hong Yuye but focused on the direction of the building. His own position was somewhat conspicuous, but the fact that Hong Yuye was sitting on the tree branch made him feel that he wouldn't be noticed standing beneath the tree. As for other things, Jiang Hao had made a preliminary observation and hadn't found Fang Jin and the others so far. He didn't know where they were hiding. Behave and spare yourselves the pain. In front of the building, 4 adult men escorted a group of children in black hoods. Jiang Hao observed them carefully. 9 children and 5 adults. Among the 5 adults, 4 were escorts, while the 5th one walked at the back. The 4 at the front were at various stages of the Golden Core realm. The one at the back was at the peak stage of the Golden Core realm, but his aura was strange. "They're strong." Jiang Hao was surprised. The 5 people were very powerful. He assumed the person walking at the back must be Zuolan, but is he still a clone? Where is his true body? Jiang Hao said, looking up at the woman on the tree branch. "You don't need to ask me. Make your own decisions and do what you need to do. I will not interfere," said Hong Yuye. Jiang Hao wasn't surprised at her response. If even the Golden Core cultivators required Hong Yuye to take action, there would be no need to bring anyone along. The 4 in front are not clones, but I don't feel any mental connection with the 5th one. This means Zuolan is hiding and that is indeed a clone. Is he going to wait for the final power to appear before coming out? Will I still have time to make a move at that point? It was going to be a difficult battle since most of the adults were in the Golden Core realm. Although he hoped for a challenging fight, it would be best to crush the enemy with a single strike. Subconsciously, he touched his eyebrow. There were no issues with his divine ability. The reappearance of the hidden spirit ability would be his greatest trump card for tonight. Whether he could take down Zuolan or not would depend on this ability. The 9 children were led to the side of the altar. Their heads were covered with black hoods, so Jiang Hao couldn't be sure whether there was a girl among them. Everyone wore similar clothes. It seemed that the disciple of the Bright Moon sect was also from a poor family. "Stand still. Don't move. You die if you struggle," said a man as he kicked a child. From afar, Jiang Hao heard the children whimper in fear. He waited quietly. Once the children were bound, a man took out a knife and tried to cut their wrists. Jiang Hao saw a sword light flash in the distance. "You scum from the demonic sect." It was Lan Jin. Jiang Hao remained calm and watched quietly from afar. The demonic sects had a bad reputation. Even the Heavenly Note sect was notorious in its actions. That was one of the reasons why Jiang Hao wanted to clear his name as soon as possible. It was quite troublesome to carry the name of the Heavenly Note sect and venture to other places. The Heavenly Note sect wasn't a small sect, but it wasn't that great either. If it was as big as the Clear Sky School, it would be much better. Boom. Lan Jin took action. There were surprise attacks from 2 other locations near the building. So, the first one was a decoy, Jiang Hao thought. Fang Jin had injured a Golden Core realm cultivator. Although it wasn't a severe injury, it still gave Fang Jin an advantage in the fight. The situation was far better for Bai Qiong. It seemed that the late-stage Golden Realm cultivator was no match for her. Among Zuolan's group, there was more than one cultivator in the peak stage of the Golden Core realm. At this moment, Zuolan himself was cutting the children. Jiang Hao watched without taking any action. Zuolan's true body had not yet appeared, so he couldn't be impatient. If the true Zuolan didn't appear, he wouldn't find the stone tablet here. Boom. The aftermath of the battle shook the building and exposed the entire altar to the moonlight. Fang Jin looked at the activated altar impatiently. He was unsure what Zhuolan meant to do. The one at the peak of Golden Core Realm held on. It wasn't difficult to defeat this opponent, but it would take quite a while. He didn't have time to waste. Lan Jin, who was fighting against 2 early-stage Golden Core Realm cultivators, called for help. She was at a disadvantage as she was fighting them alone. Although she had outstanding strength and powerful treasures, she lacked combat experience. Sister, don't be nervous. They are not your match. Keep your mind steady and analyze their movements. Think about the body techniques and sword techniques you know. Apply them, and you'll be able to defeat those 2 easily. They are not strong, Fang Jin said to her. Not strong, said one of the early-stage Golden Core Realm cultivators and laughed. A bunch of children would be enough to deal with this little girl. They knew that if she got accustomed to their attacks, they would be in danger. Her spirit sword was far too powerful. Sister, hold on a little longer. Bai Qiong applied her magic seal and suppressed the enemy with the power of her techniques. She manipulated thunder, and electric light swept from all directions like multiple swords. However, it did nothing to the altar. Fang Jin was somewhat puzzled. He still hadn't seen Jiang Hao anywhere. He didn't know if Jiang Hao was hiding somewhere, or if he hadn't arrived at all. The people of the Bright Moon sect are nothing special. Zhuolan looked at Fang Jin from the altar. I even prepared other methods, but it seems they won't be necessary. Zhuolan, do you know that one of the disciples among your captives is our sect's disciple? Asked Fang Jin. His hands clenched on his sword, and it exerted even stronger pressure on the Golden Core Realm cultivator he was fighting. I know. What does it matter? What can you even do to me? Said Zhuolan. I heard that the Heavenly Note sect also plans to snatch her away. If I sell her to them, I will get a substantial amount of spirit stones, won't I? Zhuolan activated the altar. I'm guessing that you'll definitely be blackmailed by the Heavenly Note sect and killed, said Lan Jin. Thanks for the warning. Maybe I'll sell her elsewhere, Zhuolan said with a grateful smile. You. Lan Jin was furious. Zhuolan calmly took out the stone tablet and placed it on the altar. The others didn't react, but Jiang Hao was finally interested. The stone tablet looked similar to the ones he had. However, Jiang Hao sensed a slight difference in the aura of the tablet. Is it a fake? Jiang Hao couldn't understand. Can a fake stone tablet still serve as a medium? He used the technique he learned from the Nameless Manual to observe and analyze the stone tablet. He found that it seemed to be connected to something. Is the fake stone tablet connected to the real one and used as a medium? Jiang Hao was shocked. Zhuolan was this cautious. Chapter 147, Chapter 147, Instant Kill. Chapter 147, Instant Kill. Seeing the fake stone tablet resonate with the real one, Jiang Hao knew that the real stone tablet was nearby. If he captured the real person, he might get more information. However, it would be difficult to identify him. Should I use the stone tablet to investigate? It might alert the enemy, and the distance was not close enough to pinpoint the exact location. If the enemy became aware, who knows what would happen? If he fled, it would be difficult to find him again. At present, the altar held little value for Jiang Hao. He decided to wait. Since Zhuolan sought the power of the primordial spirit realm, he might appear when the power manifested in the altar. Jiang Hao glanced at Hong Yuye. He wanted to tell her that being cautious was normal. Even Zhuolan was being very cautious. Hong Yuye saw through his thoughts. Are you trying to tell me that most people are cautious? Yes. There are always stronger enemies around, so it helps to be on guard. It's different. Hong Yuye gently shook her head. You are fundamentally different from him. You don't want to offend anyone, nor do you want others to pay attention to you. Zhuolan is quite the opposite. He is not afraid of trouble or being watched. He considers himself clever and wise, and unafraid of being found out. He leaves no room for errors. He is confident enough to enjoy himself. Confident. Jiang Hao looked at the altar as it began to emit light. He finally understood. Zhuolan knew that the people from the Bright Moon sect would appear. He also knew that other owners of the stone tablets were in the Heavenly Earth City. Yet, he had gone ahead with the preparations and conducted the ceremony on the altar. He successfully held back Fang Jin and the others, initiating his final plan right under their noses. He had made all the preparations beforehand. While being cautious, he also seemed to have enough confidence in himself. Understanding this, Jiang Hao decided to work harder in improving his cultivation in the future. Boom! Fang Jin kept unleashing powerful spells and bombarding the surroundings. He saw the altar fully activate and gather an immensely powerful force within it. Once this power condensed completely, he didn't know if they could get out alive, let alone rescue the disciple from their sect. Junior sister Bai, attack, Fang Jin said. Bai Qiong understood. She stepped back and muttered something. Thunder needles penetrated the surroundings of the building. She flew into the air, her long hair swaying in the wind. Thunder radiated from her body and surged in the sky. Then thunderous roars echoed and hit the ground. The heavenly thunder formation, Bai Qiong shouted, and countless thunderbolts came from the earth, resonating with the thunder in the clouds. Boom! They collided in the sky. Countless thunderbolts covered the entire building and attacked the altar. You set up the heavenly thunder formation here? I thought you had some hidden cards. Zhuolan sneered, standing atop the altar. His body emitted light, and a new power surged in the surrounding, which was driven by his will. Faced with this thunder formation, Zhuolan merely made a pinching gesture. The stone pillars around the altar began to glow with a blood-red light. The light converged into a barrier that covered the altar. Boom! The thunder struck down. The 9 children bound to the stone pillars screamed. This blood demonic formation uses their blood as a trigger. Keep attacking, and when their blood runs out, the formation will break, Zhuolan said to Bai Qiong. Bai Qiong found herself in a dilemma. She hesitated. Right then, something struck her. Your weaknesses are too apparent. Zhuolan sneered. Do you know why these 9 children are covered in black hoods? I made it so that you won't be able to recognize the one from your sect. What if your disciple was never here? Ha ha ha. Fang Jin frowned. The tremendous power of the altar made them stop. If the enemy could control that kind of power, they had no other means to fight him. You aren't stupid. I'll grant you that. But you aren't very clever either, said Zhuolan. There should be someone else with you. Why hasn't he arrived yet? I've made many preparations to welcome him. I hope he hasn't run off. By now, he had absorbed the majority of the power, and the aura of the primordial spirit realm emanated from him. Fang Jin felt helpless. However, he was also curious. Where was Jiang Hao? What was he waiting for? Lan Jin still didn't believe that Jiang Hao was that strong, so she wasn't surprised that he was hiding. If they don't want to come out, then so be it. Zhuolan crouched down and placed his hand on the stone tablet. Jiang Hao narrowed his eyes. The clone intended to transmit the power of the primordial spirit realm to the original body. Although he didn't understand the nature of this power, he had to be cautious. He needed to capture the direction of the power's aura and prevent the fusion with the original body. He couldn't let Zhuolan's original body obtain that kind of power. Just as Jiang Hao prepared to make a move, he discovered that the power of the primordial spirit realm was moving toward the bottom of the altar and was getting absorbed instantly. A powerful force burst forth from beneath the altar. Zhuolan is right under the altar. Jiang Hao felt a bit disappointed in himself. It was too late. He could sense that the altar itself was covered in numerous formations, but he didn't expect someone to be hidden within it. Boom! The power of the primordial spirit realm erupted. The altar couldn't withstand so much power, so it exploded. A continuous roar shattered the altar, and debris flew in all directions. The first to bear the brunt of it all were the children. Oh no! Fang Jin and the others wanted to rescue them. The children were suffering. However, they were stopped by Zhuolan's men. At that time, 9 spirit swords suddenly descended from the sky and landed in front of the 9 children with a loud bang. They blocked the flying debris. "Who is it?" one of Zhuolan's men asked. Bai Qiong noticed a person standing behind him, aiming his at the man's neck. The dagger flew and embedded itself in the neck of the man. The man attempted to escape, but another spirit sword appeared in front of him and pierced through his chest. "Who?" gurgled the man as blood flowed out from his neck. "Who is it?" Another spirit sword stabbed into his back. It pierced through his body. He coughed up a mouthful of blood. His face filled with terror. Then, one after another, numerous spirit swords appeared from all directions and impaled themselves into the man. Only then did Jiang Hao arrive before him, and he slowly grabbed his storage treasure. "Don't worry. You won't die alone." Chapter 148, Chapter 148, Crushing Zhuolan with Absolute Strength. Chapter 148, Crushing Zhuolan with Absolute Strength. Bai Qiong was rooted to the spot. The person had taken only a span of a few breaths to kill the man. She found it unbelievable as she looked at Jiang Hao. What cultivation realm is he in? Both Fang Jin and Lan Jin had stopped fighting. They stepped back, surprised by Jiang Hao's arrival. Why has he appeared now? The power of the primordial spirit realm was already released. There was no time. "You finally came. Were you waiting for me?" asked Zhuolan. This time, the real Zhuolan was present. Primordial spirit realm, Jiang Hao sighed inwardly. He didn't want to fight someone in the primordial spirit realm. Among the enemies he had faced till now, Zhuolan seemed the strongest. Jiang Hao wasn't confident. If Hong Yuye didn't help, he had no choice but to fight alone. He didn't know if Hong Yuye would intervene after his defeat. "I came for the stone tablet." Jiang Hao looked at Zhuolan. Zhuolan appeared to be in his late 20s, with a pale complexion and well-defined facial features. His tall figure exuded strong spiritual energy. "Peak of the Golden Core Realm?" Zhuolan looked at Jiang Hao in disdain. "Do you plan to snatch the stone tablet from my hands? Coincidentally, there is something I want from you. Your presence has disrupted our plan. You think you came looking for me, but I have been the one looking for you all this time." Jiang Hao sighed in his heart. "Who is the person behind you?" "You'll know when you meet them." Zhuolan looked at Jiang Hao disdainfully. "You're lucky. If it was up to me, I would have just killed you." Jiang Hao lowered his head. He wanted to launch a sneak attack, but Zhuolan's clone was behind him. There was no opportunity for a surprise attack. He could only confront him head-on. As for the stone tablet, he didn't ask for it. If he won, it would be in his hands. If he lost, it would be meaningless to ask anything at all. He would be dead. Zhuolan didn't make a move, but he turned to look at Fang Jin and the others. "All of you from the Bright Moon sect can leave with your disciple. I'm not interested in you anymore. I don't believe your words." Fang Jin didn't hesitate and got ready to attack. Bai Qiong and Lan Jin followed suit. At this moment, one person at the peak of the Golden Core Realm and two others in the early stage of the Golden Core Realm moved toward Jiang Hao. Fang Jin swung his long sword. Bai Qiong attempted to activate the thunderstorm formation again. Lan Jin gritted her teeth and raised her sword. However, just as they were about to attack, a blade light suddenly swept past their eyes. It was the third form of the heavenly blade technique, the meteor. Clang! The blade resembled the shadow of the moon. It flew like a shooting star. Jiang Hao appeared in front of the person in the peak of the Golden Core Realm. He slashed at him. He was killed with a single slash. The blade did not stop at that. It reappeared in front of the other two in the early stage of the Golden Core Realm. The blade passed like a meteor rain. In just a couple of slashes, the two cultivators were instantly beheaded. The third form of the heavenly blade technique, combined with various footwork and blade techniques, allowed him to swiftly approach the enemy, kill them, and then proceed to another. Just one slash could kill 7 people consecutively. When he reached the fourth person, Jiang Hao circulated the Hongmeng Heart Sutra at full force. He arrived in front of Zhuolan, who was in the primordial spirit realm. Reappearance of the hidden spirit. The power of the peak of the Golden Core Realm appeared from the center of his forehead and fused in his body. He intended to use the third form of heavenly blade again. At the same time, purple energy emerged and spread across his entire body, covering the blade in his hand. Slash. Jiang Hao used his strongest power to unleash a powerful slash. The meteor technique's speed was unrealistic. Zuolan couldn't even recognize it until Jiang Hao was right in front of him. Zuolan didn't dare underestimate the enemy and used his defensive magic treasure. Boom. Crack. Bang. The purple energy swept and shattered the defensive magic treasure. The blade slashed Zuolan's arm. With a bang, Zuolan was sent flying. Blood poured out from his arm. He was heavily wounded by the slash. Everyone was stunned. Jiang Hao's attack and Zuolan's injury had happened in a blink of an eye. It had all been too fast. Jiang Hao didn't stop. After knocking Zuolan away, he landed beside Zuolan's clone. Without hesitation, a long spear appeared in his hand, covered by the purple energy. He then struck it. Zuolan's clone didn't even have time to react when Jiang Hao's spear shattered its skull. The purple energy surged. Jiang Hao launched another attack. This time, he used the first form, moonslaying. Moonlight flashed past. This time, Zuolan began to counterattack. He swung his 8-sided sword to fight Jiang Hao. "You're not in the Golden Core Realm," said Zuolan. "No. I don't believe someone at the Golden Core Realm can be my match in a fight." Clang. Power erupted as the saber and the sword collided. Jiang Hao was enveloped in Tneen purple aura, suppressum ms opponent witn overnem gross. A slash forced the opponent back. He then used the second form of the heavenly blade, mountain suppression. With a bang, the surrounding buildings and trees instantly turned into rubble. Despite being heavily injured by mountain suppression, Zuolan swung his sword toward Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao used the third form of the heavenly blade, the meteor. He flitted out of the way. He appeared in front of Zuolan again and slashed at him. The 8-sided sword cracked. Jiang Hao disappeared once again, only to reappear behind Zuolan. The second slash came unexpectedly, striking his neck. Blood gushed out. Zuolan clutched his neck in horror. "How is this possible? Who are you?" Even as someone in the primordial spirit realm, he was getting crushed by an opponent in the Golden Core Realm. At this moment, a meteor flashed by. Before anyone could react, a long knife pierced through Zuolan's chest. Several knives flitted past and impaled themselves on Zuolan's sides and back. When the meteor dissipated, Zuolan was heavily wounded. He was kneeling on the ground. Jiang Hao stood in front of him, activating his wrist guard to use mountain suppression. A scream of agony echoed in the air. As a crushing strength pinned him down. Zuolan's blood splattered everywhere. Jiang Hao withdrew the purple energy and sheathed his blade. His half-moon blade was filled with cracks. He sighed. At this moment, he was overcome by exhaustion briefly. It was all because of the nameless manual that he had been able to mask himself. As expected, facing someone in the primordial spirit realm was too much work. He couldn't be this reckless in the future. Fortunately, Zuolan hadn't had the time to refine his cultivation. Otherwise, Jiang Hao would have been in trouble. Of course, he still retained one trump card. He hadn't revealed his primordial heavenly sword, Shiyu. "Now, can you start answering my questions?" said Jiang Hao indifferently. At this moment, the 3 people from the Bright Moon sect came back to their senses. Lan Jin's face was filled with fear as she looked at Jiang Hao under the moonlight. The figure standing on corpses was a terrifying existence. She wanted to hide behind her seniors. His indifference and calmness made her even more scared. How could someone in the Golden Core Realm kill someone in the primordial spirit realm? At that moment, she finally understood what her senior brother had meant when he said that one had to keep a low profile and try to befriend others outside the sect. If she had somehow offended this person, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Lan Jin felt fortunate that she had followed her senior's advice. Fang Jin and Bai Qiong were equally shocked. Jiang Hao's immense strength was awe-inspiring. Chapter 149, Chapter 149, Taking Stock of the Gains. Chapter 149, Taking Stock of the Gains. Jiang Hao stood in front of Zuolan. He then turned his head to look at Fang Jin and the others. Lan Jin trembled in fear. Fang Jin and Bai Qiong felt their scalps tingling. You should focus on saving your disciple first, Jiang Hao said to them. The 9 children were still bleeding at the altar. If left unattended, their lives would be in danger. Fang Jin and the others finally snapped out of it. Thank you, disciple Jiang. We've been careless, Fang Jin said. The 3 of them went to rescue the children, hoping to see their junior sister among them. Jiang Hao turned back to Zuolan. At this moment, Hong Yuye appeared by his side. Jiang Hao picked up Zuolan's storage treasure. Fortunately, Zuolan had withstood the impact of the mountain suppression technique to some extent. His storage treasure was undamaged. Jiang Hao found 5,000 spirit stones inside, along with a stone tablet and a book. 5,000 more. He handed the stone tablet to Hong Yuye. She put it somewhere out of sight and looked at Jiang Hao. Give me the other 2 as well, she said. Jiang Hao knew she wanted to combine the 3 tablets. After handing over the stone tablets, he turned to the injured Zuolan. What was your purpose in coming here? Purpose? Zuolan coughed blood. He struggled to speak, but the desire to survive was clear in his eyes. Will you spare my life if I tell you? Jiang Hao didn't answer. He simply stared at Zuolan. Zuolan chuckled and felt his consciousness grow fuzzy. His vitality was dissipating. No matter what happened now, he would die. I was here to investigate the Heavenly Note sect, he said weakly. Why? Jiang Hao was confused. Other than the Heavenly Fragrance Dao flower, what else was worth investigating in the Heavenly Note sect? The mining site. That was the only thing Jiang Hao could think of. We are only following orders. Each person who possesses a stone tablet has a different mission. Zuolan's voice was soft. My mission was merely to find out about the history of the Heavenly Note sect. Who are you taking orders from? Jiang Hao wasn't particularly interested in the history of the Heavenly Note sect. However, Zuolan's investigation might be related to the book Jiang Hao had found in his storage treasure. He planned to check it later. Zuolan was in a weakened state. His head was lowered and blood flowed from his mouth. I have a question, he said weakly. What is it? Jiang Hao asked. You. What cultivation realm are you at? Zuolan made an effort to look at Jiang Hao. Are you in the primordial spirit realm? I'm at the peak of the golden core realm, said Jiang Hao truthfully. You will be killed, Zuolan said. There are many people in this world who envy geniuses. Many. I know, Jiang Hao said. That was why he didn't want to attract attention and preferred to cultivate quietly. When he became invincible, he wouldn't have to worry anymore. Unfortunately, Hong Yuye had already discovered his cultivation realm now. Jiang Hao didn't know if she would make a move against him soon. He still needed some cards up his sleeve. Zhuo Yutian, said Zuolan. Is he from the Great Thousand God sect too? Jiang Hao asked. Yeah, Zuolan's aura was fading away. It's him. We were given orders by him, but I don't know about the others. Jiang Hao nodded. Where are the other stone tablets? They probably escaped, Zuolan said. His voice became fainter and fainter. Do you know who crafted the stone tablets? No, I don't know. Jiang Hao looked at Zuolan and remained silent. He was dead. Jiang Hao sighed and turned to look at Hong Yuye. Senior, do you know anything about Zhuo Yutian? Hong Yuye shook her head. Let's go back. Jiang Hao nodded. There was nothing for them here anymore. After taking away the storage treasures from the enemies, he stabbed the bodies 2 more times to make sure they were really dead. Then, he bid farewell to an astonished Fang Jin and the others before disappearing into the woods. Meanwhile, Fang Jin and his group managed to rescue the 9 children. Their junior sister was among them too. After several setbacks, they finally met the disciple stolen from their sect. However, a little boy by her side worried them. However, what worried them the most was Jiang Hao. His motive and purpose weren't as simple as they had thought. They didn't question too much. Fortunately, they weren't at odds with Jiang Hao. They were somewhat friendly at this point. For the next 3 days, "Don't disturb me," said Hong Yuye before she went into her room and closed the door. Jiang Hao was happy for some leisure time. 3 days without worrying about Hong Yuye was akin to a holiday for him, but he couldn't stray too far from Heavenly Earth City, as it would be easy for others to discover his location. During these 3 days, he planned to explore the city, but the immediate priority was to examine the gains from the recent encounter. Perhaps tonight was another night of obtaining sudden wealth for him. Jiang Hao began to take stock of his spirit stones. He had around 3,806 spirit stones on him. Now, with Zuolan's defeat, he had found 5,101 spirit stones in his storage treasure. In addition, there was a book of records. Jiang Hao placed the book on the table and organized the spirit stones. After putting the spirit stones into his own storage treasure, he opened the clone Zuolan's storage treasure but found nothing inside. "That's weird," muttered Jiang Hao. "There should be more. There should at least be something inside." 5,000 spirit stones was a lot of money. Zuolan was good at making money, but he must have spent a lot, considering everything he had done. Jiang Hao was already satisfied with the amount he had now, but he was puzzled that he found no other treasures at all. Does he have a stronghold somewhere else? What a pity, not even one person survived. Jiang Hao proceeded to inspect the storage treasures he had picked up from the other 4 Golden Core Realm cultivators. They weren't particularly wealthy either, with one having 926 spirit stones and the other having 1,103 spirit stones. They were poor too. Jiang Hao realized that the Golden Core Realm cultivators from the Heavenly Note sect were much wealthier. After all, being affiliated with the Heavenly Note sect granted them access to some cultivation resources, while these individuals had to constantly purchase resources with their own spirit stones. It made sense that they were poor unless they accumulated spirit stones for several years like Shashin. The 2 cultivators' storage treasures contained some other items. There were foundation building pills, as well as some average quality treasures, along with a few healing talismans. Together, they could be sold for around 300 to 500 spirit stones. Next, he opened the storage treasure that belonged to the late-stage Golden Core Realm cultivator and found that this person wasn't much better off than the previous 2. They had 1,300 spirit stones, a decent quality foundation building spirit sword, and 2 bottles of commonly used pills for the mid-stage Golden Core Realm. These items were worth around 1,000 to 2,000 spirit stones. There wasn't much else of value. Finally, he took out the storage treasure that once belonged to the Peak Golden Core Realm cultivator. Upon inspection, he found no spirit stones inside. However, there was a note. The first line read, "I know that I may not come back alive this time, so I have hidden all the valuable things elsewhere." Jiang Hao was taken aback. He had never expected to encounter someone like this in the cultivation world. Chapter 150, Young Master and the Maid. Chapter 150, Young Master and the Maid. Looking at the note, Jiang Hao couldn't help but laugh. It was the first time he had obtained such a storage treasure. There was more written on it. "I have reached the peak of the Golden Core Realm and have been accumulating spirit stones to make a breakthrough to the primordial spirit realm. I have been saving for 68 years, and I have a total of 39,868 spirit stones, along with numerous talismans, treasures, and pills. I also have a formation for seclusion. These are my lifelong savings, but unfortunately, I might die here. I'm telling you all this just to let you know that you missed out on tens and thousands of easily obtainable spirit stones by killing me. Although I'm dead, you will remember my name. Disciple Donghua." Jiang Hao felt a little regretful. He sighed warily. "Disciple Donghua. I'll remember your name, all right." He truly hadn't expected to encounter such a strange cultivator in this world. He felt a little sorry for killing him. However, he didn't want to encounter someone like him again. It was quite frustrating. If what the note said was true, then he had missed out on an opportunity to become very wealthy. With the spirit stones he already had, he could have obtained a total of 40,000 spirit stones. Suddenly, the spirit stones in his own storage treasure didn't bring him as much joy as before. One had to admit that Donghua was quite adept at playing with people's minds. In the end, Jiang Hao put away the note, thinking that he could place it in someone else's storage treasure next time so that others could experience this. After carefully calculating the spirit stones he possessed, Jiang Hao realized that he was still quite wealthy. He had a total of 12,263 spirit stones. This time was different. He didn't need to purchase the tea again, deducting the 3,000 spirit stones for the law enforcement hall and another 3,000 for purchasing treasures. He would still be left with 6,000 spirit stones. I can finally raise the spirit beast properly. I might only obtain a golden bubble. A pity. How long would it take to get two? Regardless of whether the spirit beast could awaken its dormant bloodline, it was evident that it would require many spirit stones. He still didn't have enough spirit stones. Shaking his head, Jiang Hao checked his own condition. He wasn't in good shape after killing Zhuolan. The reappearance of the hidden spirit ability is indeed powerful but quite exhausting, muttered Jiang Hao. I should take the spirit regenerating pill early to avoid any complications. The half-moon blade has cracked again. Jiang Hao sighed. The half-moon blade wasn't strong enough to be used with all the three forms of the heavenly blade. Maybe using the primordial heavenly blade would have been easier. Although Zhuolan possessed the power of the primordial spirit realm, he hadn't refined his cultivation yet. Someone truly in the primordial spirit realm would be much stronger. Next time, I need to be less reckless. Jiang Hao reflected on himself. Just because he had killed Zhuolan didn't mean he could take on someone who was in the primordial spirit realm anytime. He needed to remember that. After meditating for a moment, Jiang Hao confirmed that his body had no hidden injuries. After resting tonight, his strength would be restored fully. However, he needed to store some energy in the reappearance of the hidden spirit, and he also needed to restore the attacks in his wrist guard. He just had to decide which two forms to use from the three forms he had already learned. Each had its own unique characteristics and strength. Moonslaying was a powerful offensive technique. Mountain suppression overwhelmed and suppressed the opponent, and the meteor gave him unbelievable speed. Mountain suppression was a must, as its imposing force was astonishing. Between moonslaying and the meteor. After some hesitation, Jiang Hao chose moonslaying. The meteor was physically demanding. If he was gravely injured, he might not be able to use that power. But moonslaying was different. It could be used directly without the consumption of energy. With these decisions made, Jiang Hao began his cultivation. Early the next morning, Jiang Hao activated the reappearance of the hidden spirit and restored his power of the golden core realm at the center of his forehead. Then, he rested to recover his strength. At noon, Jiang Hao stored the two attacks, moonslaying and mountain suppression, in his wrist guard. After completing these things, he let out a sigh of relief. He was restored to his peak condition, but he was still lacking a proper blade. It's a pity that the marketplace only opens once a month. It's a bit inconvenient. Jiang Hao would make do with an ordinary blade for now. Occasionally, green bubbles also contained swords. Altnoun Eni was T quite a Swaras last MGNT, Eni still na some spirit swords left. It would be enough for now. However, if he wanted to unleash enough power, he needed a good blade. Jiang Hao watched the people below from his window. He brewed a pot of tea for himself. He used the Snow Queen spring tea. Although he was in good condition now, the tea made him feel even more refreshed. Of course, part of the reason was that he had 12,000 spirit stones on him. He felt good when he had money on his hands. It made him more willing to make a pot of tea that cost around 55 spirit stones. Afterward, he began thinking about the next course of action. Zhuolan was killed. It would be very difficult to find stone tablets unless there was a substantial breakthrough with the 3 stone tablets they already had. They would have to search from one city to the next. There are still 2.5 months left. I wonder if there will be any progress. Zhuo Yutian. I have to find some clues about him. These were matters that Hong Yuye needed to be concerned about, but the problem was that Jiang Hao was pressed for time. He had to return to the sect within 3 months. After pondering for a while, Jiang Hao got up and left the room. He wanted to wander around the city. When he went downstairs, he heard a little girl exclaiming loudly. "No, you can't send the young master away. Wherever he goes, I'll go too." Jiang Hao was puzzled when he saw Fang Jin and the others in the hallway. They appeared frustrated. In front of them stood a frail little girl, holding on to an equally frail little boy and refusing to let go. The boy appeared to be around 11 or 12 years of age. The girl must be around 10. Upon closer inspection, Jiang Hao noticed her eyes. Despite her frail appearance, her determined eyes exerted its will. He knew that the little girl had exceptional talent. It was no wonder she was chosen by the Bright Moon sect. Then Jiang Hao turned to look at the little boy. He looked conflicted, as though he was making a hard decision. Upon careful observation, Jiang Hao felt that there was something strange about the boy. It seemed he exuded various auras, but all of them were weak. "Is he unwell?" Jiang Hao asked curiously. Bai Qiong noticed him. "Fellow disciple Jiang, hello," she said. "I apologize for any inconvenience caused, my friend," said Fang Jin bitterly. Lan Jin remained silent. She had learned her lesson. Fortunately, Jiang Hao wasn't a person of bad temperament. Otherwise, if he kept a grudge against her, even her seniors might not have been able to protect her. "That's all right," said Jiang Hao. He looked at the little girl. "Is this your junior sister? She doesn't seem willing to leave with you." "Indeed. We can't make a decision right now. We will have to wait for our senior uncles to arrive," said Fang Jin. He explained the situation briefly to Jiang Hao. The young girl was Chu Jie. She used to be a maid in the Chu family. All that was left of the Chu family now was the young master, Chu Chuan. They relied on each other and survived for 3 years. Although life was tough, Chu Jie continued to serve as a maid to her young master. She had a single-minded determination and only saw her duty to the Chu family. She insisted on staying by her young master's side. Chu Jie refused to be separated from him. Chapter 151, Chapter 151, Taking in a Disciple? Chapter 151, Taking in a Disciple? Jiang Hao sat by the table and listened attentively, somewhat surprised by what he heard. At first glance, the situation seemed complicated, but when summarized. However, everything was quite simple. The maid had exceptional talent but didn't want to be separated from her young master. "By the way, we already arranged everything for the other children. They have been returned to their parents. If they are willing, the Chen family can take them in as well. After all, they are all talented individuals. It's not easy to find 7 disciples at once," Fang Jin said. Jiang Hao nodded and looked at Chu Chuan, sitting in the corner. "That young boy also has some talent. Can't you take him back together with the girl? Is his talent not sufficient to enter the sect?" "He can't enter." Fang Jin sighed. "I checked him. Chu Chuan has average talent, but it barely reaches the 3rd section of the Jade. It's not that we can't take him along, but he would be the lowest-ranking individual in the entire sect. It would come as a blow to him. He would also only have access to ordinary cultivation techniques. It would be better for me to teach him a better technique now and let him cultivate it in a different place. Although I don't have much prestige, my words still hold some weight in our small sect. This way, he can cultivate better and receive better treatment. Unfortunately, Chu Jie is unwilling. Even if we place him in the outer sect, it wouldn't be good for him." Jiang Hao understood that where there was competition, there would naturally be winners and losers. Weak people were harassed everywhere, especially if they had low talent. This was even more prevalent in the demonic sects. Therefore, the boy had to demonstrate good talent while cultivating quietly. Only then would he be able to avoid harassment from others. Jiang Hao couldn't help but sigh as he looked at the 2 children. These 2 kids who had relied on each other for so long would eventually have to take different paths in life. At this moment, Lan Jin was still trying to persuade the children. Chu Jie refused to compromise at all, but Chu Chuan seemed to understand the situation. "Go with them," he said earnestly to the girl beside him. "When I make a name for myself here, I will come to your sect to find you. By then, I will definitely be able to protect you." To Bai Qiong and the others, These were words of comfort. The little boy was trying hard to console the little girl. In the future, she would surpass the boy in every aspect. Even Jiang Hao thought the same. The gap between them was just too great. Unless the young boy encountered something extraordinary, he couldn't match up to his maid in talent. The young boy seemed somewhat out of place in Jiang Hao's eyes. Jiang Hao activated his daily appraisal ability. Jiang Hao was somewhat surprised. This little boy was similar to Ju Chan. If this kind of person really joined the Bright Moon sect, there was a high possibility that he would rise up in the ranks. He would undoubtedly face harassment from those stronger than him, but his faith and willpower were indomitable. Perhaps you can consider taking him back with you, Jiang Hao suggested to Fang Jin. If there's no other way, we'll have to do that. Our senior uncles might arrive within a day or two. They will have to decide, said Fang Jin, shaking his head. Jiang Hao didn't say much. He felt that the Bright Moon sect would be at a loss if they didn't accept the boy. Chu Jie shook her head. Without me, how will you take care of yourself, young master? Look at it this way. If you join the sect and learn to cultivate, wouldn't you be better able to take care of me? Yeah. In a few years, our sect will have a Dao discussion event. Your young master can come and see how you've grown, said Lan Jin. When you become stronger, you can protect your young master better than you can now. The words stirred some interest in Chu Jie. Jiang Hao smiled, then bid farewell to Fang Jin. He didn't want to get involved and decided to wander around the city. This time, Jiang Hao had no specific goal. He was just hoping to find some bubbles. On the way, he thought about Chu Chuan. With his hidden immortal heart, he was like a spirit beast with a dormant bloodline. It was a pity that no one had a way of tapping into that and helping the boy. At least with spirit beasts, it could be done by spending some spirit stones. If there was a way like that, Jiang Hao would have taken the boy with him. He knew that humans couldn't drop bubbles. After a stroll, Jiang Hao bought some food and headed back to his room. He continued studying the Nameless Manual. The more he studied it, the better he felt about controlling the power within his body. The next morning, Jiang Hao was startled awake. He felt a powerful aura approaching from afar. In the end, it descended in front of the inn. So formidable, even Zhualan seems as insignificant as a grain of rice before that aura. Whoever it belongs to might even have surpassed the primordial spirit realm. Jiang Hao's first thought was that Fang Jin's senior uncles must have arrived. It was best to keep a low profile in front of such a powerful individual. He decided not to go out and focus on his cultivation instead. The next day, someone knocked on Jiang Hao's door. This was the third day since Hong Yuye had gone into seclusion. Today was the last day of Jiang Hao's freedom. Fellow disciple Jiang, are you in there? Asked Fang Jin. Jiang Hao didn't understand why Fang Jin had come to look for him. Maybe to bid him farewell. He noticed Fang Jin's awkward smile as he opened the door. Fellow disciple Jiang, are you free right now? Can we go downstairs for a while? My senior uncle wishes to see you. It's just a request, so please don't misunderstand. A request? Jiang Hao was surprised. Nevertheless, he nodded and accepted. He had sensed the formidable strength of Fang Jin's senior uncle. He couldn't refuse. Hong Yuye might have been able to handle him, but Jiang Hao wasn't at that level yet. Jiang Hao went downstairs with Fang Jin and saw 3 other people there. 1 middle-aged man and 2 young men. There was nothing noteworthy about the 2 young men. Their cultivation was merely at the Golden Core realm. The person of concern was the middle-aged man sitting in the chair. He appeared calm, and a powerful aura emanated from him. It made his presence known. I am Jiang Hao Tian. Please accept my humble greeting, said Jiang Hao. Please have a seat, said Han Xiao and motioned toward a chair calmly. I am Han Xiao. I have a small question for you, Junior. Please go ahead, said Jiang Hao humbly and sat across from him. Han Xiao looked at Jiang Hao with a smile. I heard that your strength is remarkable. I wonder if you have any intentions of taking on disciples? Chapter 152. The Bright Moon Sect Give Too Much. Chapter 152. The Bright Moon Sect Give Too Much. Only Jiang Hao and the guests were in the living room, besides Fang Jin. Fang Jin, Jiang Hao, and Han Xiao sat at a table. The two young men stood behind Han Xiao, while Jiang Hao sat across from him. Fang Jin sat beside them and watched everything quietly. Jiang Hao was puzzled. As a junior with limited qualification and insufficient strength, I am unable to be a teacher to any disciple. Young friend, don't be in a hurry to refuse. Why not listen to our opinions first? Han Xiao said politely. Fellow disciple Jiang, you already know about our young junior sister's situation. We tried to persuade her in the past few days, and she finally agreed to join our sect. However, she has a condition. She agrees to join us only if we find a suitable master for Chu Chuan. She also said that she wants her young master to be able to participate in the Bright Moon Sect's social gathering. The latter is easy, but the former is difficult. Your strength is apparent to us all. We hope you'll consider taking in Chu Chuan as your disciple. I have no intention of taking in disciples at the moment, said Jiang Hao. Although Chu Chuan was special, taking in disciples was very troublesome. Jiang Hao found it hard to protect himself. How could he even think of taking up responsibility for another person? Furthermore, being a teacher was not an easy task. He just didn't want to mislead a young person. If he could become stronger and have fewer enemies in the future, he might consider it. It was impossible for now. Han Xiao took out a jade pendant and an invitation card. He gently placed them on the table. The jade pendant is a token of honor for distinguished guests of the Bright Moon Sect. If you face any problems in the future, you can ask us for help. The invitation card can be used for joining conferences and explorations of the Bright Moon Sect. This was a great gift. It wasn't given to just anyone. If he needed to flee in the future, the Bright Moon Sect would help him. He could even seek shelter there temporarily. I also heard that you like tea. I have some good quality tea here that I would like to give you as a gift, said Han Xiao and took out an exquisite box. Jiang Hao looked at the box. Open it and take a look, Han Xiao said with a smile. Jiang Hao moved the box closer and opened it. Emerald green tea leaves with a touch of fiery red on the edges. He could recognize that tea anywhere. It was the red azure tea. Jiang Hao was shocked. Our request is simple. Please accept Chu Chuan and teach him cultivation, said Han Xiao. In a few years, the Bright Moon Sect will hold a Dao conference. If he wants to attend, you can send him to us. If he doesn't want to, that's fine too. Do you think Chu Chuan has no potential? Asked Jiang Hao. His willpower is fine, but his talent is just average. He could join the outer sect, but it might affect the young girl's progress. We are willing to accept her conditions because they will understand as they grow. By then, it won't affect the girl's cultivation, said Han Xiao. Jiang Hao understood him. In a few years, Chu Jie, with her extraordinary cultivation, would be in the foundation establishment realm. However, Chu Chuan might only be in the lifeblood refinement realm at that time. It would be a world of difference. Jiang Hao felt that the people of the Bright Moon Sect were actually very decent. They weren't forcing Chu Jie in any way and were accommodating of her conditions. If it was a demonic sect like the Heavenly Note sect, they would have taken who they wanted without considering what the person might feel. Don't you want to know which sect I'm from? Asked Jiang Hao. Han Xiao shook his head. That doesn't matter. Jiang Hao realized that knowing about it might create trouble for both sides, so they didn't ask. They just wanted to solve the problem at hand at all costs. All other things were secondary. You've done enough already, said Fang Jin. But we would be very grateful if you could do this for us. We know it's a lot to ask. Do Chu Chuan and the others know about my cultivation realm? Jiang Hao asked. They don't, Fang Jin said. In their eyes, you are at the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. Jiang Hao looked at Fang Jin. Do they know who killed Zualan? Fang Jin shook his head. They don't know that exactly, but they know that you were involved somehow. Jiang Hao always kept his cultivation level fixed at the mid-stage of the Foundation establishment realm. He speculated that the other side wanted to hide their cultivation realm too. Jiang Hao gave it some thought. He accepted the jade pendant. The red azure tea was a bonus. He had a mission, and he was taking someone back to the sect. If the law enforcement hall accepted that as a fulfillment of the mission, all would be well. Even if they didn't, he would just need to pay the fine. There was no harm in this. Moreover, the Bright Moon sect was trying to fulfill Chu Jie's request. They didn't really care for Chu Chuan. Even if he ended up dead in the process, that wouldn't matter to them. I cannot accept disciples, said Jiang Hao. Han Xiao frowned. However, I'll take Chu Chuan back with me to my sect and leave him in the care of my master. That way, I will be able to help him as best as I can. When the time comes, I will help him if he wants to head to the Bright Moon sect. That's the only thing I can do. Jiang Hao waited for Han Xiao and Fang Jin's decision. The difference between a disciple and an apprentice was like heaven and earth. Fang Jin was a little puzzled. Why won't you accept disciples? Jiang Hao smiled. Would you accept disciples if it were you? I don't have enough seniority in the sect. Fang Jin was surprised by the question. He finally understood that even he wouldn't be able to do the thing he asked Jiang Hao to do. Han Xiao lowered his head and thought for a moment. At last, he nodded. Alright. I agree with your proposal. Han Xiao took out a storage treasure and put it on the table. I prepared these for him. There are some cultivation pills, techniques, and treasures. Please give this to him when it's the right time. Can I take a look? Jiang Hao asked. Of course. Han Xiao nodded. He turned to Fang Jin. The rest is up to you now. I have to leave the city for a while to deal with some people. After saying that, he left with his companions. Jiang Hao speculated that they were probably on their way to deal with the people from the Heavenly Saint sect. That worried him. If the people from the Heavenly Saint sect found out that he was here, the consequences would be grave. Friend, please put away these things. Please keep the jade pendant well, said Fang Jin. I believe you understand that this jade pendant represents a favor from the Bright Moon sect. The Bright Moon sect will agree to any favor that you need, whether it's something small or big. For example, joining the sect or helping with a task. However, once the favor is used, the jade pendant will be reclaimed. If unused, you will always be regarded as an esteemed guest of the Bright Moon sect. Having this status within the boundaries of the sect will be very convenient for you in the future. It would be best if you refine it to prevent it from being stolen, said Fang Jin. Jiang Hao picked up the jade pendant, which had the words Bright Moon sect engraved on it. It was a treasure. He refined it right away. Chapter 153. Chapter 153. Do I have to be next to the Demoness while she bathes? Chapter 153. Do I have to be next to the Demoness while she bathes? Jiang Hao felt that once the imprint was erased, the jade pendant would self-destruct. The pendant emitted a gentle aura that calmed one's heart and settled one's spirit. Fang Jin pointed at the invitation card. This invitation card should be signed by you and Chu Chuan. If someone impersonates you, it may not be immediately noticeable. If you have this, we will know it's really you. Please don't lose it. Jiang Hao didn't think much about it. This card would only be useful for major events like the Dao conference. He didn't really need it. It was mainly for Chu Chuan. He also put away the red azure tea, which was of even better quality than the one he had recently bought. He earned over 10,000 spirit stones and no longer needed to worry about Hong Yuye asking for more tea. As for the contents of this storage treasure, you should keep them well. How you distribute them to Chu Chuan is up to you, Fang Jin said. After a brief look at the storage treasure, Jiang Hao found a cultivation technique called the Star Moon Lifeblood Refining Art. He also found some spirit regenerating pills, and some talismans. A Foundation Establishment realm treasure, and 500 spirit stones. This was quite generous. At the Lifeblood Refinement realm, Chu Chuan wouldn't have been able to accumulate so many spirit stones. Having so much money in his hands would affect how he conducted himself in the sect. It might lead to arrogance and early death. I will give him a little bit at each stage, Jiang Hao said. Since he had gained many benefits from the Bright Moon sect, he would do his best to reciprocate. Fang Jin nodded. Jiang Hao glanced at the Star Moon Lifeblood refining art technique. Although it only recorded up to the Foundation Establishment realm, it was a powerful technique. It even surpassed the 100 revolutions of the Heavenly Note. It utilized starlight as a guide to draw in the lifeblood and integrate it into one's body. It was most suitable for newcomers to cultivate at night, as their cultivation speed would greatly increase because the Star Moon lifeblood was abundant at night. This was suitable for spells. The 100 revolutions of the Heavenly Note focused on blood and energy resonance for the better temperament of the physique. The Heavenly Note sect didn't have any specific requirements regarding the kind of technique one followed. In the afternoon, Fang Jin and the others prepared to leave. Young master, you must come and find me when you can, Chu Jie said in a tiny voice. Chu Chuan readily agreed. Of course. Please take care of yourself. Friend, if you have the opportunity, please visit the Bright Moon sect. Let me repay your hospitality, said Fang Jin. Definitely, said Jiang Hao and bowed. Thank you, disciple Jiang, for saving my life before. Bai Qiong bowed to him gratefully. You're too kind. You have nothing to thank me for, Jiang Hao said politely. I may have offended you before. Please forgive me, said Lan Jin, feeling a little embarrassed. No need for that. I didn't take it to heart. Jiang Hao was surprised at Lan Jin's apology. After a while, Fang Jin and the others turned around and left. They flew away with Chu Jie. He could vaguely hear their conversations as they flew away. Junior sister Lan, you've grown a lot. I'm not an ungrateful person. That's all. Learn more about how to interact with others, and you'll be able to accompany other juniors out of the sect someday. Jiang Hao watched them leave. He felt a little envious that he didn't have seniors like that who guided him. He had so many trust issues that whenever someone treated him well, he only felt suspicious of them. He felt that sometimes the immortal sects were much better than demonic sects. Will I ever see Chu Jie again? Asked Chu Chuan. Jiang Hao looked at the little bot. What do you think? I'll work hard. I must go and see her someday. It's good to have such confidence. Jiang Hao looked up at the sky. Sometimes people might have very high ambitions, but their life may be as fragile as a glass that might shatter at any minute. Do you think such a person can achieve greatness? I don't know how to answer that, said Chu Chuan. Remember, you need to survive first, said Jiang Hao. That is the most important thing. As long as you're alive, you can do anything. Do I have to endure it when people harass me? Chu Chuan suddenly asked. Only you can answer that. If you think you have no other way than to endure it, then do it. However, if you think you can fight back, then do so. No matter what you do, you have to be prepared for the consequences. Jiang Hao walked toward the backyard of the inn. Chu Chuan followed him. My sect is not an easy place to survive. With your average talent, you will naturally have to endure more than others, said Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao sat down in the pavilion in the backyard. Chu Chuan stood by his side. He felt nervous. Have you made up your mind? My sect is not a good place, Jiang Hao said. I have made up my mind, said Chu Chuan. I might not be able to become as strong as Chu Jie, but I still want to try, so that I might be able to see her one day. All right, said Jiang Hao. You have two options for cultivation techniques. One is the Heavenly Note sect's 100 revolutions of the Heavenly Note technique. The other is the Star Moon Lifeblood refinement art. Which one is more powerful? Chu Chuan asked. Jiang Hao poured himself a cup of tea. In my opinion, the Star Moon Lifeblood refining art surpasses the 100 revolutions of the Heavenly Note in many aspects. What do you think I should cultivate, Master? Chu Chuan tentatively asked. Call me senior brother, said Jiang Hao. The 100 revolutions of the Heavenly Note. Why? Chu Chuan was puzzled. Granted, it isn't as strong as the other one, but it'll be easier for me to guide you in that technique because I already practice that. Chu Chuan nodded. Then it shall follow the 100 revolutions of the heavenly note. Jiang Hao looked at the little boy. His future had been determined by others so easily till now. He didn't know whether it was absurd. Jiang Hao did feel that the 100 revolutions of the heavenly note suited Chu Chuan. Whether it would do him good was left to be found out. Jiang Hao taught Chu Chuan the static and dynamic exercises of the 100 revolutions of the heavenly note. Once you've made some progress, I will give you the things that the Bright Moon sect left for you. After you join the sect, I will have someone test your progress every week. It might be tough for you. You can choose not to be tested if you feel like that. If, at any point, you feel like you don't want to be in the Heavenly Note sect anymore, you can come and tell me. I'll find someone to send you out of the sect. However, after you reach the Foundation Establishment realm, I'll no longer be responsible for you. Every choice you make will be your own. After that, Jiang Hao arranged a place for him to stay and allowed him to cultivate on his own. He then greeted Chen Quan and the others. The next day, Jiang Hao went to Hong Yuye's room. As soon as he entered, a stone tablet was thrown at him. Before he could carefully examine the stone tablet, Hong Yuye turned to him. "Prepare some hot water for me. I want to take a bath." Jiang Hao wasn't surprised. She hadn't been out of her room in days. However, he was rooted to the spot. "You cannot leave my room while I'm bathing. If you dare to peek, you know the consequences." Jiang Hao looked at the wooden tub behind the folding screen. He was shocked and worried. If it was any other woman, he would have felt nothing. He had no desire to peek. However, with Hong Yuye, it was different. She made him restless and stupid. He had the Heaven Extinction GU poison to thank for that. He couldn't understand her at all. Chapter 154, Chapter 154, An Undercover Agent. Chapter 154, An Undercover Agent. Jiang Hao prepared hot water for Hong Yuye. After testing the water temperature and making sure it wasn't too hot, he stepped out from behind the folding screen. "Senior, the water is ready. Is the door closed?" Hong Yuye asked as she got up from the table. "It's closed," Jiang Hao said. "Close the window as well." Hong Yuye walked behind the folding screen. Jiang Hao closed the window. "Place a chair and sit in front of the folding screen with your back facing it." Jiang Hao followed the instructions. Once he was seated, he heard her undressing. She then hung the clothes on the folding screen. Jiang Hao felt a bit uneasy. Although Jiang Hao could function normally when facing her, he felt that might easily lose control. Splash. The water splashed as someone stepped into the tub. "Focus on the door and window," Hong Yuye said. Jiang Hao covered his energy trails with his golden core realm ability. Considering Hong Yuye's strength, Jiang Hao didn't think anyone could get close to her. This was deliberately making things difficult for him. Splash, splash. Jiang Hao guessed Hong Yuye was pouring water over her body. A floral fragrance drifted out. Jiang Hao felt somewhat restless. He took a deep breath to calm himself. "Senior, there's something I want to discuss with you." "What is it?" Hong Yuye asked from behind the folding screen. Jiang Hao could guess that Hong Yuye loved taking baths. "When I left the sect with you, I received a mission for recruitment. So, when we return, we might have an extra person traveling with us to the sect. Have you decided on the recruit?" Hong Yuye asked. "Yes. It's been decided already," said Liang Hao. "Assigned by the Bright Moon sect?" "Yes." When Han Xiao arrived, there was a lot of commotion. Even Jiang Hao was able to sense his arrival, let alone Hong Yuye. "What reward did they give you?" Hong Yuye asked. Jiang Hao heard the water splashing again. "They gave me some red azure tea." "What else?" "An invitation card too." "Anything else?" The splash of water subsided. A vast and majestic aura emerged. However, it quickly dissipated. Soon, Hong Yuye resumed her bath and the water splashed in the tub again. "Let's pretend for argument's sake that that's all you received." Jiang Hao heaved a sigh of relief. "Have you ever considered joining the Bright Moon sect?" asked Hong Yuye curiously. "The people of the Bright Moon sect seemed to have favored you." "Senior, You must be joking. I still have your flower to take care of. Why not take the flower with you? Hong Yuye asked. Elder Baiji would kill me. Leaving the Heavenly Note sect will be considered a betrayal. I'll be hunted down, said Jiang Hao. As a disciple of a demonic sect, my style of cultivation leans toward the demonic path. It might be difficult to settle in an immortal sect. Although Jiang Hao has always remained true to himself, the demonic sect had done what it could to influence him. He could feel the changes in him. Jiang Hao had realized that he was different from Fang Jin and the others. It might not be a good thing to join an immortal sect, after all. He might not be able to fit in. A while passed and Hong Yuye didn't say anything else. There was only the sound of water splashing in the tub. After a while, the splashing stopped. Senior, have you finished bathing? Jiang Hao asked. Do you want to bathe too? Hong Yuye walked out from behind the folding screen, looking at Jiang Hao with a teasing smile. A familiar fragrance accompanied her. She had changed her clothes. No, it's all right. Hong Yuye had changed into a different dress. Her previous red and white dress was replaced by an orange one. A white belt cinched her waist, and the hem reached her ankles. Tidy up and get ready to leave, Hong Yuye said. Jiang Hao packed some things and bid farewell to Chen Quan. He also requested the man to take care of Chu Chuan in his absence. He didn't take Chu Chuan along with him right now. Jiang Hao asked him to wait here at the inn and told him that he would pick him up when he returned to the sect. There were formations and spirit herbs in the backyard, which would make his cultivation twice as effective. With the Chen family around, there should be no problems. He also left some talismans for Chu Chuan, just in case. I will come to pick you up in a month or two, Jiang Hao said to Chu Chuan. After that, he left Heavenly Earth City with Hong Yuye. On the way, Hong Yuye looked at him. Won't the people from the sect think that you ran away? They have given me a time limit of 3 months, said Jiang Hao. If I don't return in 3 months, they might think I ran away. Hong Yuye didn't ask anything further. Did you find any more clues from the stone tablets? Jiang Hao asked. Hong Yuye shook her head. No. That's where you come in. You need to figure it out. What is the purpose of the new stone tablet? Jiang Hao asked as he took out the recently acquired stone tablet. This stone tablet is quite interesting, Hong Yuye said. Inside, you can see the messages from other people, but it seems there is someone with a higher authority controlling it. We don't know the whereabouts of other stone tablets. In theory, the people who are involved should know about it. Once my influence on the stone tablet disappears, you will infiltrate them and find out their location or the whereabouts of the person that controls everything. Infiltrate? Jiang Hao felt uneasy. He had seen many infiltrators around him. Traitors in the sect who had wanted to kill him. He had never expected to go undercover himself. Fortunately, he wasn't infiltrating the Heavenly Note sect. He knew what happened to traitors there. The heavenly fragrance Dao flower was still in his courtyard. Elder Baiji would definitely keep a close eye on his activities. As long as he was clean, he wouldn't have to worry. After considering it, Jiang Hao felt that it was dangerous. However, nothing and nobody was as dangerous as the beautiful woman he was traveling with. If there are no positions available, then we can only search one city at a time. Jiang Hao frowned. After the incident with Zualan, they might stay away from Hidden Cloud Prefecture. Hidden Cloud Prefecture was vast. 3 months wouldn't be enough to search all the places. If worse came to worst, he would have to ask Hong Yuye to let him return. If he didn't return to the sect, he would be considered a traitor and hunted. The heavenly fragrance Dao flower would be neglected. That was reason enough to return to the sect on time. They arrived at the nearest city, Waterwood City. After staying there for 3 days without any new clues, Jiang Hao and Hong Yuye continued on. They arrived at Luo Yuan City. There was a spiritual mine here. Hong Yuye observed the place for a long time. Do you think this place is special, senior? Jiang Hao asked. Chapter 155, Chapter 155, Extraordinary Grace. Chapter 155, extraordinary grace. At the edge of the mining site, a desolate area stretched out. Further away, there were lush trees. Hong Yuye stood at a high point, gazing at the mining site. The mining site itself isn't very special. It's the terrain that's a bit peculiar. The spiritual energy condenses but doesn't disperse. It's a good place. What's the use of this terrain? Jiang Hao asked. He looked at the terrain closely but couldn't find anything out of place. Glancing at Jiang Hao, Hong Yuye smiled. Underneath the mine, there are tombs. They are not ordinary tombs. Perhaps they have never been discovered. Tombs? Jiang Hao was astonished. Should we go down to take a look? He asked. Hong Yuye sneered and turned away. She had looked at him with such disdain that Jiang Hao felt self-conscious. What's the point of visiting a place where the dead rest? Hong Yuye said. It's bad luck. Listening to her words, Jiang Hao felt even more impressed by Hong Yuye's strength. Her cultivation, knowledge, and mindset were all extraordinary. However, sometimes she made him feel strange. Not only did she claim the heavenly fragrance Dao flower from his courtyard, but she also took away his discarded treasures. Lost in thought, he momentarily forgot to keep up with her. Do you want to stay and mine? Hong Yuye turned back and asked. No. It's just. I was thinking about how I admire your boldness, senior, said Jiang Hao. Are you lying again? No, Jiang Hao said. Hong Yuye stopped and looked at Jiang Hao. A smile appeared on her face. Jiang Hao was a bit startled. He lowered his head. A red light flashed, and they disappeared from the spot. In the blink of an eye, Jiang Hao found himself in Luo Yuan City. This was the most prosperous and populous city in the vicinity. It also had a considerable number of cultivators. Jiang Hao and Hong Yuye stayed in the city for 4 days. He even sold some items. He earned about 2,500 spirit stones. He now had about 14,700 spirit stones in total. Jiang Hao spent 3,700 spirit stones to buy a blade. The craftsmanship of the blade was average, and the quality was decent. It was suitable for the Golden Core realm and the Foundation Establishment realm. The blade was light and handy but didn't have any other unique traits. Its only advantage was durability. It was dark red, but the edge was silver. The blade didn't have a name, so Jiang Hao decided to call it Half Moon Blade, like all the others. After 4 days with no new clues, Jiang Hao and Hong Yuye moved to other cities. They stopped for a few days in each city they passed. Sometimes they encountered trouble, but Jiang Hao usually resolved it quickly so that it wouldn't affect Hong Yuye. Midway, they ran out of silver coins. Jiang Hao had to borrow some from a wealthy family with a terrible reputation. They then continued on with their journey. More than 2 months passed in a flash. Jiang Hao realized that he now had only 10 days to return to the sect. Months of searching had yielded no results. They visited various small sects and cities. They found some clues, but the people they were looking for had long fled the place. After Zhuolan's death, they either fled or retreated to other places. During this time, Jiang Hao studied the stone tablet. He discovered an area for exchanging messages. However, it couldn't be used. Upon examination, he found that Hong Yuye had exerted an influence to prevent the owner of the tablet from discovering their location. They had to wait for her power to dissipate. Only then could they use the stone tablet. Why does the tablet have an information exchange area? Wondered Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao decided to study it when he returned. This is the last city in the vicinity. Other cities are far away from here, Jiang Hao said as he looked at the small city ahead. Hong Yuye was still wearing her orange and white dress. She hadn't asked him to prepare water for any more baths. Jiang Hao guessed that the stone tablet might have consumed her energy before, so she had asked for a bath. Do you want to go back? Hong Yuye asked softly as she walked ahead. I'm sorry. I will have to return to the sect within the time limit, said Jiang Hao apologetically. In that case, pray that your undercover mission yields useful information. Otherwise. Hong Yuye glanced at Jiang Hao. By now, I hope you know the consequences of failure. Jiang Hao lowered his head. Yes. In 3 days, if we don't discover anything, I'll send you back, said Hong Yuye. Do you know how many people have been trying to find your location during this journey? Jiang Kao's heart skipped a beat. He was curious, but he didn't know what Hong Yuye was implying. He didn't respond. Hong Yuye didn't care about Jiang Kao's silence. She walked ahead, but her voice reached his ear. There are a total of 4 groups of people trying to find you. 2 of them are going all out. You dislike being in the limelight so much, but it seems you have quite a talent for attracting attention. I thought you were invisible. Senior, you must be kidding. Jiang Kao sighed. Jiang Kao felt worried, especially since he didn't know who those people were. The 2 fanatical ones must be the Heavenly Saint sect and the Sunset Immortal sect. He didn't know about the others. Perhaps they were the Black Heaven sect and the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. Regardless, he must avoid venturing outside alone. After returning, he would continue cultivating. If enough time passed by, any grudge could be resolved. However, one thing was certain. All the people searching for him were having a hard time pinning his location. Either Hong Yuye masked his location, or some treasure was doing it for him. It would be better to make people think he had treasures that masked his location than an expert who's helping him. Senior, do the stone tablets have the ability to conceal my location? Jiang Kao asked. Barely. However, the stone tablets are special, and few people can see through them, Hong Yuye said. Jiang Kao felt relieved. If he were noticed by the seniors of the sect, he would just shift the blame to the stone tablets. If they questioned him about the origin of the stone tablets, he could just make something up. This world was filled with strange things, after all. Jiang Kao looked toward the city that lay ahead. It was their last stop. In these 2 months, he had also looked for his family along with finding clues for the stone tablets. Although he was sold at the age of 5, he had lived with them as a child. Even though his family hadn't been very kind to him, he was still grateful that they had raised him. They had taught him to read and write. After he was sold to the Heavenly Note sect, life had been tough. He had no one to rely on. His life was much more difficult than having to chop firewood at home every day. He wished to see them one last time, but he couldn't find them anywhere. This was the last city where ordinary non-cultivators lived. If they were still alive, they should be here. However, he didn't find them there either. 3 days later, Jiang Kao left the city. In these 3 days, he had gained nothing. He thought of the worst possible thing that might have happened to his family. Chapter 156, Chapter 156, Junior Brother, the mission has failed. Chapter 156, Junior Brother, the mission has failed. Jiang Kao visited all the nearby towns and cities, starting with Fallen City. He had even asked around in the nearby villages. Logically, his stepmother and his father should have been in one of these places. However, he found nothing. He had thought that he could meet them and resolve everything once and for all. He just wanted a chance to say a proper goodbye. When he was sold at 5, the only thing he had felt then was fear and resentment. He hadn't even bid them farewell. It had been 17 years since he had last seen them. Jiang Kao didn't want to think the worst. Perhaps they had left for a city or town further away. It wasn't impossible. A lot could change in 17 years. That would also mean Jiang Kao might never meet them again after he returned to his sect. He couldn't venture out of the sect for a few years, or even a decade. By then, they might pass away. Suddenly, Hong Yuye's voice sounded in his ear. When you discover something as an undercover agent, you better be prepared to venture out. Jiang Kao was a little surprised. He nodded. If you slack off, there will be consequences. Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Kao coldly. I understand, Jiang Kao said. Let's go. Hong Yuye took a step forward. One step covered several miles in an instant. Jiang Kao turned back and glanced at the city that was about to disappear from his sight. He brushed his thoughts away. Let's go back. In Heavenly Earth City, Chu Chuan practiced his cultivation in the backyard. His talent was average, so he needed to spend more time cultivating. It had been over 2 months, and he still hadn't made any significant progress. During that time, He had learned some new things, such as the 100-day allowance. As long as one had a talent, they could join a sect after 100 days of cultivation because that was time enough to establish one's foundation. However, it had been 2 months already, and he was still trying to gather spiritual energy into his body. It seemed that it would take a long time for him to be able to circulate the spiritual energy for cultivation. Eve Chen Quan shook his head in defeat. Chu Chuan was worried. What if the Heavenly Note sect didn't accept him? He had heard that the Heavenly Note sect was one of the most powerful sects nearby. It was also a demonic sect. He had heard it from Senior Chen Quan. He was afraid, but he didn't show it. Chu Chuan had even prepared a fake name in case of emergencies. He didn't know whether they knew his real name or not. He didn't care anymore. You're still cultivating, young friend? Chen Quan walked in. Senior Chen, Chu Chuan greeted him respectfully. Hasn't Senior Jiang returned yet? Chen Quan asked curiously. Chu Chuan shook his head. Many people had asked him the same question. He understood why they were asking him that, but he didn't dare think about it. He didn't want to entertain the notion that Jiang Hao might have abandoned him. If that were true, he would need to find a way to survive. That was one of the reasons why he had created a fake name for himself. Senior Jiang must have been delayed by something, Chen Quan said with a reassuring smile. Even if Jiang Hao took a year to return, he would have to take care of the boy. Heaven forbid if Jiang Hao arrived late and didn't see the boy where he left him. Chen Quan shuddered just thinking about it. Chu Chuan was about to reply, but suddenly felt dizzy and collapsed. Chen Quan was alarmed and was about to help the boy when Jiang Hao descended from the sky. He lifted Chu Chuan in his arms and flew away. Thank you, Senior Chen, for taking care of him. The spirit herbs in the backyard are a gift for you. Before Chen Quan could respond, Jiang Hao flew out of sight. Jiang Hao returned to the Heavenly Note sect. Hong Yuye had accompanied him till the sect and then vanished without a trace. Looking at the familiar sect, Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. After more than 2 months, he was finally back. There were still a few more days left. Chu Chuan woke up. When he saw Jiang Hao, he was startled. Who are you? Jiang Hao was puzzled for a while, but he realized what had happened. Hong Yuye's power was gone. Jiang Hao didn't answer his question. I'll guide you into the sect. This will be your home. Don't tell anyone about how you entered the sect. Just tell them that I brought you here. Don't tell anyone about the Bright Moon sect and your connection to them. Although there shouldn't be any issues with it, it was still better to keep a low profile. The risk was worth taking. A favor owed by the Bright Moon sect would definitely come in handy in the future. Moreover, no one outside had seen his true appearance, so he could avoid being recognized. Your Senior Jiang? Chu Chuan found it hard to believe. How did I end up here? I was in the backyard. My name is Jiang Hao. You can call me Senior Brother Jiang, said Jiang Hao. Now, follow me. I'll take you in. Remember, observe your surroundings more and speak less. It might just keep you alive for longer. Jiang Hao took the boy to the law enforcement hall. He went there to report the fulfillment of his mission. Juma Brotna Jlang, isn't TMS a milligram deviation? Tneen person on Tneen counter looked at Jiang Hao helplessly. The person we wanted was a little girl named Chu Jie and you brought back. I couldn't get Chu Jie, but he grew up with her. They are related, more or less. Junior Brother Jiang, this is a failed mission, said the person at the counter. Jiang Hao sighed inwardly. When do you plan to pay the spirit stones as a fine for failure? Jiang Hao didn't say much and handed over 1,000 spirit stones. I can pay back the rest in about 3 months. All right, said the senior sister at the counter. Here. You can keep this receipt. Senior sister, do you want me to arrange something for this junior? Jiang Hao asked. Although Chu Chuan didn't understand what was going on, he knew it was best to be quiet. I'm sure you can figure something out, Junior Brother Jiang. Jiang Hao nodded. Thank you. Jiang Hao left the law enforcement hall along with Chu Chuan and headed to the Cliff of Broken Hearts. He asked someone to obtain the necessary materials for the new disciple. He then went to find his master. He informed his master of his return and also of the situation regarding Chu Chuan. If his master punished him by assigning him to the mines, that would just be a bonus. However, his master only nodded briskly and didn't say anything more. Jiang Hao was accustomed to his master's silence. Jiang Hao turned to Chu Chuan and told him that if he needed help, he could find him at the spirit herb garden. After that, Jiang Hao returned to his house. Chapter 157. Chapter 157. The Demoness gave me a lost pill. Chapter 157. The Demoness gave me a lost pill. Jiang Hao sighed when he reached his courtyard. He hadn't been back for 3 months, but this place was still the same as he left it. There were no problems with the surrounding array formations. After walking in, he saw the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. It had also grown taller. The fragrance filled the courtyard, and the spiritual energy became denser. The lotus flowers were also growing well. It seems that the spirit beast hasn't slacked off in my absence. Jiang Hao chuckled. He walked to the immortal peach tree. That tree had changed a lot. It had fruits now. He plucked a peach and bit into it. It was juicy and delicious. However, they were just ordinary peaches. Jiang Hao activated daily appraisal on the tree. Jiang Hao was a little surprised. He needed 4,900 spirit stones and had to leave a fruit behind to achieve the first incarnation of the tree. If there were no fruits on the tree, would he have to wait till next year? He didn't want to wait another year, so he decided to save 4,900 spirit stones as soon as possible. I thought I was rich, but it seems half my spirit stones will go to the spirit beast and the other half to the tree. Fortunately, he was not in a hurry to hand over the compensation to the law enforcement hall. It wasn't that he didn't have enough spirit stones, but he was worried that handing them all at once might attract unwanted attention. Handing the fine little by little was safer. If others found out about it, they would only gloat. Jiang Hao walked to a corner of the courtyard while eating the peach. He took out the cracked half-moon blade and stuck it into the soil. He hoped the Demoness wouldn't steal this one like his other blades. After that, he went into his house. There was nothing out of place. Jiang Hao walked to his balcony and looked at the river near his house. What bubbles will immortality peach tree spawn? Gold or purple? If it was similar to the spirit beast's bloodline, it might be gold. The tree was ordinary enough right now. It was best if it spawned a gold bubble. However, he would be happy with a purple bubble if gold wasn't an option. He had experienced the benefits of having many divine abilities. It always came in handy. I'll try again after a while. Jiang Hao decided to go to the library before anyone found out he was back. He wanted to find out what kind of medicinal pill Hong Yuye had given him. If possible, he wanted to save up and buy one. Jiang Hao spent a long time in the library that day. In the evening, he found something in one of the records. The Snow God pill can nourish and repair divine abilities. There is also a chance to activate another divine ability with its help. There was only one sentence about it. He asked the white-haired librarian if he had any other records with information on such a pill. The librarian wasn't a very forthcoming person, but a few spirit stones would always do the trick. Jiang Hao handed over 3 spirit stones. The old man accepted them and looked at him. Well, ask away. I want to know more about the Snow God pill. Is this pill very rare? Jiang Hao asked. You want to use this to activate your divine ability? The old man looked at Jiang Hao and laughed. There are many people like you in this world. They try to dream about the impossible. Is the pill ineffective? Jiang Hao asked. He was worried that the one he took before might have an adverse reaction and damage his abilities. It's effective, said the old man. The Snow God pill can help people who don't have the talent to open their divine abilities. At least that was what people believed. There are no such pills. Jiang Hao was surprised. The old man sighed. The pills have been lost for centuries. Only a few immortal sects have it. Maybe just 1 or 2 of those exist in the world right now. Jiang Hao thanked him and left the library. He couldn't help but sigh. Hong Yuye was indeed extraordinary. Jiang Hao overheard a conversation as he passed by a group of people. Those people have been asking me for spirit stones again. It's so annoying. Why should I pay back? A mere early-stage foundation establishment realm cultivator dared to ask me for spirit stones. Without us refining and creating the pills, they would have none. How dare they make us pay? That's right. I don't think they have the right to provoke us. We're alchemists, for heaven's sake. We wasted precious cultivation time to make them pills. What did we get in exchange? Jiang Hao heard a man and a woman arguing. Cheng Cho had told him before that the people from the Candlelight Pill Pavilion owed him spirit stones. Ah, he told me about it. I did say I would help him after returning. This is troublesome. It was common for alchemists to buy spirit herbs and pay them back later. Alchemists weren't someone to mess with, but they were rich. Jiang Hao headed to the market to buy some talisman-making materials. It was expensive to raise a spirit beast, and now he had to worry about the immortal peach tree too. In addition, he had to pay 2,000 spirit stones to the law enforcement hall. He needed a total of 12,000 spirit stones. He only had 10,000. He had to earn spirit stones as soon as possible in the next 2 months. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to pay off his debt. Junior brother Jiang, haven't seen you here in so long, said a voice as soon as he reached his stall. Senior sister Leng Tian? Jiang Hao was surprised to see her selling pills here. Leng Tian was indeed an alchemist. Do you still sell talismans, junior brother Jiang? Of course. What talismans do you need, senior sister Leng? Do you have any 100,000 swords talismans? I only have 5 for now. I want to buy them all. Jiang Hao felt a little strange. He was actually selling something to another seller. When he saw the pills laid out neatly at her stall, Jiang Hao asked her why some of the alchemists weren't paying back their debt. Because they're poor, said Leng Tian. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.